James Labrie from Dream Theater, and you're listening to or watching the podcast Talking into Infinity with JT and Brian. Enjoy this. These guys are extremely informative. I love their dialogue. I love their interpretation of the songs, who and what we are, what we were going after. They're very accurate in their interpretations and descriptions, and I just think this is a great show, and these guys are doing a stand-up stellar job. So once again, enjoy Talking into Infinity with JT and Brian.
What's up, guys? Welcome to a very special episode of Talking into Infinity, a Dream Theater-centric podcast. I'm your host, John. We are live on Facebook, YouTube, talkingintoinfinity.com, the CMSnetwork.com, and the CMS Network Rumble page. We are at those locations every other Thursday at 7:30 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. If you are watching on YouTube, please remember to click that like button, click that subscribe button, click the notification bell so that you are notified every time we go live, especially for awesome special / bonus episodes like the one we are doing today. Brian is actually not here. He is at the Ohio State football game. They are currently kicking the crap out of Marshall, the Thundering Herd. They're not thundering so much around Columbus, Ohio right now. So it'll just be me and a special guest host. We have been teasing this for quite a while now, and we are going to do an album deep dive into one of my personal favorite records, one of my personal favorite bands. Brian is very, very upset that he was not able to make this episode. So, we got to do well without him, because otherwise he's going to be real pissed that he missed it and couldn't put his 2 cents worth in. But we have an awesome guest host coming on here in just a second. He has been on the show a couple times. You know him from Eden's Curse. You know him as James Labrie's co-writer on James's most recent amazing solo record, A Beautiful Shade of Gray. And we had him on to talk about the writing of that record. We had him on to do the deep dive of that record. And we had talked off air with him and said, hey, man, if you ever want to come back on and, talk about, anything, let's do it. And he's a big Queensryche fan. And so we wanted to talk some Queensryche. So I hit him up. He's available. And here he is, friend of show, the mighty Paul Logue. What's up, man? Good to see you again, man.
Here we go. Here we go.
I love it. I love it, man. Oh my God, that's so great. It's so funny. Like you jumped on, like we were saying earlier, you and I both have our Operation Mindcrime shirts on. Like we're kind of matching here. And
yeah.
So
yeah, I don't own an Empire shirt, so we had to go with the only one. I think this might be the only one that fits me, and I'm saying just fits me.
I'm a lot larger than you, and I have the same problem. So, oh my God, that's awesome.
All relative. You can't fatten a thoroughbred.
Very true, man. Very true. Well, thank you very much for hanging out, man. I was thrilled that you were able to come on. Really, really appreciate you making time to hang out. The previous episodes that we've done together have been awesome. We always appreciate having you on. And it was really cool that you're a big Queensryche guy, because Brian and I, unfortunately he's not here, but I mean, we both love Queensryche, and to have you on to talk about it and give us, a musician's perspective and, also a fan perspective is going to be really cool. Got a bunch of people in the chat checking in. Marcus Reyes, good to see you, man. He says Houston, Texas in the house. There we go. Mike's Musical Rehab, good to see you, man. He says Empire is just a great album. I remember hearing anybody listening and thinking this is amazing. Chastity Crawley, great to see you. She says, who are you kidding? You planned to be twinsies. We actually did not plan this, Chastity. We actually did not plan this. Yeah, so
I got you.
All right. So before we get into Empire, I do have to ask you about the James Labrie solo situation. We talked a little bit off air before we went live here, and you were telling me a little bit about the new record and that you guys are in the works. So give us a little bit of an update on where that stands with the new James record and the direction it's taking and all those sorts of things.
Yeah, I thought it was clear in my contract, JT, that we weren't talking about this.
Damn it, I broke it already.
No, only kidding. Yeah, so we have got some songs underway at the moment. I guess we've been working really since the last one finished, and we finished all the press of it. We all felt collectively, and I mean James, myself, and Chance, me as the main kind of nucleus, writing team as well, that we loved what we did. We loved the reactions that it got, and absolutely we would do another one. And it was just a case of who was starting the first kind of idea, shall we say. So I think it coincided with the last Dream Theatre UK tour, on the Top of the World tour. I got a chance to meet with James, hung out for the day, and in his dressing room we were literally going through each other's iPhones, because we both work quite similarly. When an idea comes into your head, I'll grab the iPhone and I'll just record my guitar riff on there, and I might start to build that song out. And this time, more so than any, the things that I've worked on with James, I've almost been writing the full song on the acoustic without going into my studio and recording it completely, doing it kind of old school, writing it on the guitar without any other kind of tools that I might use for drums and bass, which has been kind of cool. And what I was doing when I met James is running through, I must have had about 20 odd ideas, playing them to him, and he's like, oh, that's cool. And he would literally start singing over the top of it. And I'm like, dude, grab your iPhone, that's killer, do that again. So we had a couple of hours with each other doing that. He had some ideas that he was working on. One of them, I believe, might have even ended up on the new DT. So I may have to ask him about that, because I knew that John Petrucci heard it and said, that's a DT song, keep that.
Nice.
And we'll see. So that may have ended up on the new DT. We'll find out soon. But that's what we did. We then decided, okay, let's work on this kind of song first. And I took that into the studio. So I think I've done 3 or 4 songs that are kind of fully produced in demo, sent it over to Canada. James and Chance did some kind of remixes on it, suggested kind of breaks for various different spots, and that's the way we worked on Beautiful Shade of Grey, especially when Chance came into the latter stages. So we have begun, and when I was actually in Toronto about a month ago, and again met up with James and Chance, we went for dinner. For the first time ever, we got a chance to sit down and go for a meal together, have a drink and have a laugh, because James has always been on tour and always taking care of his body and his voice. I haven't really had a chance to do that with him, and we had just an awesome evening together. But we really talked about the album, the direction, and we do want to keep it in the same kind of vein. We will probably put a little bit more electric guitar into it, but it won't be a complete shift to the electric version of Devil and Drag, for example. It won't be a full-on heavy, but again, the songs will dictate where we're going to go. I know that when James and I started Beautiful Shade of Grey, that it was just meant to be his voice and my guitar. And as we started writing these songs, we said, this needs a band, this needs orchestration, this needs a lead guitar, hell, it needs drums as well. So I guess the songs will dictate where this record goes, and I think that's the beauty of it. That's the exciting part for us as musicians, but we've got some really, really cool ideas already. I'm super excited about several of them, and I'm definitely confident that we can take what we did on Beautiful Shade of Grey and take it a step up as well.
So how did the Mike Portnoy news impact the writing in this? I mean, did it come to a complete halt and you just went from working on the solo record to completely dead stop with solo and going into Dream Theater mode, or have you guys been able to actually get some things accomplished while this new record cycle is ramping up and whatnot? They're doing the new record.
Yeah, I mean, to be honest, DT are busy all the time. I mean, when they were out on the road, Top of the World, if you take the period of time between that and the Portnoy news, it was almost like the band came off of tour, and I know James loves to go skiing with his wife in Canada, so we just kind of work on our own things. Most of the ideas will start from me sending the music over, but I've got a really, as I said off air, I've got a really stressful kind of job. I'm a director in a software company, and I fly all over the world, so he's as busy as I am, and that's the beauty of our partnership together, that we, there's no pressure, there's no inside out or not breathing down our neck to get the next one out. they just let us go and do our own thing. And that's always been what James has said to me. It's like, Paul, just take the time. When you've got an idea, send it over. When I've got one, I'll send it to you, and we'll pick it up and start working on it. So it's not like we were working on songs religiously. I was just writing and writing, and picking my moments in between the busy periods that I've got to kind of record them. And I know, nothing halted immediately like that. Nothing like that happened. I know that James will focus on, when I was out in Toronto, he was about 1 week away from doing his vocals on the new album. And he said, look, once this is done, we'll start getting really into, finishing off some of the songs. So I've got songs with James's vocals on it for the new album already. And again, I'll finish up the changes that he's got. I'll send it back. And no doubt he'll cut a full demo vocal on it. So that won't change, but it'll probably take us a little bit of time, especially with the amount of touring they've got coming up. That's absolutely fine, because my schedule isn't quite as bad, but it's, I was in New York 2 days ago. I'm in Sweden next week. I'm in London the next week. So I am constantly on the road, maybe 50% of my working time. So when I come home, trust me, the last thing I want to do is sit in front of a studio monitor and start recording guitars.
Right.
But it doesn't stop me recording all of these ideas on the phone and actually fleshing them out, because I've got the guitar here. I can sit and just start playing around with those ideas and thinking, I don't like that bit, I'll do that. And I've got most of the songs written in that file format where I just record it all here, and I'll go straight into the studio and batter them out and record them professionally for James.
Sure. How do you prefer to work? Do you like kind of getting in there and having a nice, concise, like couple-month period of just absolutely shedding on one project? Or do you prefer it this way, where you can do it piecemeal and kind of sit with it and kind of, really kind of have space between writing sessions and whatnot?
I don't think there's a real answer to that. I like all of it. I like all of it, because I'm almost writing on my own. I pick and choose what suits me, to be honest. I love. It's been a long time since I've been in a room with a band. I would absolutely love to do that at some point. And I'm talking, 30 years ago was the last time I was in a room with a band. That was a Glasgow band that I was in for 10 years, and we wrote everything in a rehearsal room like DT does today. That's extremely magical and exciting. But I don't mind writing, and that's the way I wrote with Eden's Curse. We wrote, because the band were all based internationally, just like James and I are. Mm-hmm. We would put down ideas, and we're all proficient in the studio, so we can all, I can program drums, I can sing a little bit, I can program keyboards, play a little bit of keys, so that I can give the band a real, this is the embryonic idea that I've got. You guys go and add the color to it. So like my guitar player will strip out my demo guitars and then record his and take it in a different direction. And that's the way that we worked with Beautiful Shade of Grey. I would do I did all of the guitars minus the leads. That was Marco. So we didn't really need to do anything like that. But Chance would come in with rhythms that maybe changed some of the ways that I needed to play. And then I would recut the guitars, and it was phenomenal working that way. So to be honest, I don't mind working on multiple ideas at a time, because some songs you just need to walk away from and come back to them. And you might actually start, happened to me loads of times, I'd start writing a song for even Beautiful Shade of Grey, and I might come up with a middle eight that I think, holy shit, that's a new song on its own. Just keep that for something different. And my brain's in that mode that I just start working on that new idea, just so that I don't lose the vibe. So I don't mind, JT. There's no hard or fast rule about writing songs. I think you just do what feels good to you, and you follow your own instincts. And nobody's got a manual. It's the John Lennon Guide to Songwriting. It just doesn't.
So
hell, AI will be writing them for us in 5 years' time anyway.
Right.
Yeah. So write me a follow-up to Beautiful Shade of Grey in the style of James Labrie.
The whole AI thing. That's our buddy Chris Aiken, who we're on his network. He found an AI songwriting thing, and it's pretty scary how that stuff turns out. It's really it kind of takes the humanity out of it.
I knew a guy who's kind of semi in the same business as me, and he programmed, I think it was to listen to Avenged Sevenfold and Limp Bizkit, and he programmed it to listen to all of their back catalogue and write a song as if they both joined forces, and it was incredible, absolutely incredible.
So, how, real quick, we'll do, a couple more questions on Beautiful Shade of Grey, and then obviously get into Empire. But, how did you find the reception to A Beautiful Shade of Grey? Because, when, guys, especially in kind of like I hate to call it like a niche band, but Dream Theater is very much, they've got their very strict core audience, and the solo projects don't get a lot of attention, outside of the fandom. And, this was a departure for James. And, for us on the show, every time the record comes up, everyone just raves about it. I love the record. It sounds great and everything. And, you and I have talked before about how, it's a perfect environment for James's voice. So now that, the record's been out for quite a while and everything, and you're not in all the press cycle and everything, how was the response for you, to the record? Because it really is a great piece of work. And I'm wondering if that got back to you guys, how much everybody enjoyed it.
Oh yeah, I mean, we saw a lot of the comments. If you look at the videos or you look at James's, Facebook and socials, the vast majority, most of the comments were beyond positive. There were people saying, "I did not want to like this, but I can't stop it." So that was awesome. And to be honest, it doesn't really matter too much what we feel, because we loved it as a record. The three of us, me, James, and Chance, we said in Toronto that we're so proud of it. It sounds freaking amazing. From the work Linus Cornelissen did, we worked a little bit with Dennis Ward, my buddy from Eden's Curses producer in Germany. He was helping us out in a lot of stuff as well. Just the performances by Christian from Eden's Curse and Marco is just unbelievable. He's an incredible guitar player. Everything just came together, and I think we're super, super proud of it, and the reactions that we got were phenomenal. The only negative I would say is that we just didn't get that chance to take it out on the road, because I know that James was super, super keen to do that. A select bunch of shows. I think we got a couple of tentative offers in the early days, but Dream Theater were back in on the next cycle, and that's just the way it goes. And who knows, maybe one day we'll get a chance to do, maybe the second album, we'll do a full show of all, the type of material from that. We've got a couple of ideas on how we would like to do that, and I would certainly be advocating that we maybe record it in a DVD. That would be cool. That's what I would love to do, that we have it for the fan base to see it, because it might just be a select bunch of shows, because he's so busy with his regular gigs. So am I. I mean, I'm kind of semi-retired out of music now, that I don't really have the want or the need to go on a tour bus and go on tour for months. But I would certainly love to do it with James. I'd love to at least get on a stage and share some time playing those songs live, because they deserve to be played live. They were written to be played live.
That's we have a bunch of people asking in the chat, like, is there going to be a tour? Like, would they tour on it? And so I'm glad you brought that up. Doug McCauley says, Beautiful Shade of Grey is in my top 3 of all side projects from Dream Theater members ever, including Liquid Tension Experiment.
Wow, that's high praise, man. High praise. Thank you so much.
So one last quick question, and we'll get to Queensryche. You said you're going to be in London in a few weeks. Are you going to the O2 show? The first 40th anniversary. Oh, that's awesome.
I am. Mr. Labrie Jr. is coming over, I think, with a buddy or maybe somebody from Fawcett. I don't know who he's coming with. And I've been earmarked to be his tour guide. So I'm looking forward to kind of taking him around London for the day with a friend of mine, and get to see James and hang out. And I'm super excited to see the show. I was watching something last night on TV, and it was Shania Twain. She was just on a local radio show or TV show here, where she was actually headlining the O2, and I thought, holy shit, that's where DT will be playing in a few weeks' time. So I'm actually stepping off a plane earlier that morning, I think 4 a.m. with my family, coming back from a vacation in Spain, and I'm getting on a plane about 5 hours later with my friend to go to London. So I will be dumping one case, grabbing a DT t-shirt, and heading out the other door. So it'll be
nice.
It'll be interesting. Yeah.
All right. If you could have, if they only played one song what song would you want it to be?
Oh, it's a great question. I would normally say Another Day, but because it's Portnoy, it would have to be In Presence of Enemies Part 1. Just absolutely love that. I want to hear the man that wrote it. The man. I mean, I don't mind saying this, and I really felt that Mike Portnoy was missed massively. As much as Mangini is an amazing player, there was just an oomph missing about the kind of stuff. But yeah, I'm excited to see it. And from what I got from James in Toronto, everything's going amazingly well. Everybody's happy. Everybody's excited about the tour. Mike's in charge of the set list, Mike Portnoy. So he said, and all I can tell you is I don't pry too much, JT. I'm in too privileged a position to pry with James. That's not the way a relationship works. But
Sure.
if he'll tell me stuff, he'll tell me stuff, and it's never too much kind of insight, because I'll leave him on that side of things. If he's going to share it with you, he'll share it. But yeah, he was saying, "Hey Paul, when you see this set list, you're going to piss yourself."
That's awesome.
I'm looking forward to it. So yeah, who knows? There might be some surprises in there.
That's awesome. Yeah, like we were talking off air, you're going to be going to the first show, and I'm going to the last show. So we're gonna bookend the 40th anniversary tour. It's kind of cool.
That's right.
So
That's right.
Our buddy Hennick's tuning in here from Ireland, Derry. Good to see you, Hennick.
Cool. That's where my grandfather was from, Derry. Yep.
There you go. All right.
There you go.
See, we're all international thanks to you being on here, man. This is great.
Yep.
all the people from other countries can actually tune in live this time. That's awesome. So,
so ask Henning. That's not a very Irish name. Is he from the Nordics?
Henning, answer the question there. Put it in the chat. Are you from the Nordics? Like, I know when we talked to me, I think he lives in Germany. I want to say, because I know he did some work for Dream Theater on their label and stuff like that. So,
right,
yeah. So, all right. Well, let's get down to brass tacks here. The reason why you came on. So, obviously, we are going to deep dive Queensryche's excellent follow-up to what I think is one of the greatest records ever recorded, Operation Mindcrime. Of course, we are going to be talking about Empire. And give us a little bit of background. Like, I know Queensryche is one of your favorite bands, if not your all-time favorite band. I don't know who that is, but I know you're a big Queensryche guy. So how did you get into Queensryche to begin with?
Oh, wow. So yeah, to answer your first question, I mean, DT are top, definitely. DT, I would say probably Winger and then Queensryche, top 3 band for sure for me. Love Maiden as well. Maiden's probably 4, but in that kind of order. But it was a guy that actually drew artwork for my school bands. Ian Boyd was his name, and I saw this cassette that he had, and it was the cover of Mindcrime. It's quite a striking cover in the black and white. I said, what's that? And he said, oh, it's a new kind of band from Seattle, and borrowed the tape and thought, oh wow, this is phenomenal. So that would have been roughly just when it was out. Forgive me, I can't remember the date of that, but that's what, 89, 90 or something, or was Empire 90? What, Empire?
Yeah. Empire was 90. Yeah.
So Mindcrime would have been maybe 88, 89, roughly at that time.
Yep.
Yeah, so I just had gone into high school, so I'd be about 12 years old. Bloody hell, 12. And that's when you're getting introduced to that kind of style of music and really taking off into it. And I just loved it. I loved it. Went out into Glasgow and bought my own copy, which I've still got upstairs. And in fact, even I knew that I had 3 versions of Empire, and one of them is the original that I bought, a remastered, and then I bought the more recent kind of big box set. That's quite cool, from EMI. But yeah, that just blew me away. And I agree with you. I mean, I think Mindcrime for me is the greatest concept album of all time. I think it's it's my favorite Queensryche record. There's not a bad track on it. And when Empire came out, I thought, holy shit, this is phenomenal. This is absolutely phenomenal. In my opinion, not quite as good as Mindcrime, but still, an 8 or possibly 9 out of 10. It's a phenomenal record. And I'm not going to blow too much, but the one thing I will say, and I'll say it loads of times tonight, the production on this album is sensational.
Yep.
Absolutely sensational. And Peter Collins died recently, didn't he? He passed away very recently. So that was sad to hear.
Yeah, that was actually going to be one of my main points too. Is the production is, I mean, it is absolutely crisp and pristine. Like, it sounds so full, but you can hear everything so distinctly, which is not something you get a lot, you know, especially back then. Like, I mean, a lot of bands around 1990, you know, in that sort of genre, the production wasn't necessarily awesome. You know, it was kind of muddy a little bit and stuff. You know, you listen to stuff like Symphony X or something, you know, I always fall back on those records. It was kind of, you know, you still had kind of that tinny 80s production. And, you know, Empire does not have that. And Empire's always been an interesting listen to me because I'm with you. I love Operation Mindcrime. It's in my top 3 ever. I think we're the same age because, you know, you said, you know, you were 12 years old in 88. I was as well. So I actually got into Queensryche through Mindcrime, but it was, I think, a year or two later. It was right before Empire came out. And one of my high school buddies wanted to get me a birthday present. And just, he saw, like, you know, the cover grabbed his eye. And he figured, okay, John would like that, and just gave it to me. He didn't know who the hell it was. I didn't either. And I remember listening to it, and you know, the first 2 tracks grabbed me, and then obviously Eyes of a Stranger. And I was like, okay. And the middle was cool. But as the years went by, I listened to it. I just fell in love with it. And, you know, and so I was kind of into it, you know, at the time Empire came out, and then, you know, I heard Jet City Woman. And I bought Empire. I'm like, damn, this is good. And I kind of got into both records simultaneously in a way.
Yeah, similar. Yeah.
Yeah. And I mean, it's, to me, looking back on it, it's, you know, Empire's a fascinating record because it's, you know, the vibe of it is one thing, but I think it's a very rare example of a band being able to follow up an absolute classic of a record and not have a letdown. You know, like, I mean, I think you phrased it perfectly. Like, it's not quite as good, but, you know, that's like saying the last bite of your incredible $200 steak isn't quite as good as the other bites because it's not as warm. You know what I mean? Like, it's still just incredible. And I personally, I don't think there's a bad track on Empire either. You know, as you said about, you know, Mindcrime. So yeah, and, you know, the production. And one of the things that's always struck me is I remember reading something back at the time in Guitar World or something like that, and they had said that, you know, Empire is basically written by a band who had been struggling for years to make it, and they finally did, and they were in a great headspace. They were successful. They were making money, and basically their dreams had come true. And I think that's something, you know, as years have gone by and I listen to the record through that lens, I don't know where you stand on that, but I think I can hear that. I think this is a very up record. I think it's very positive. It's a lot of major key stuff. Like, you can, I mean, and they've got, you know, a couple different, I hate to use this term, but love songs on the record, you know? And so, I mean, where do you stand on that? Because I think this is a very unique record for them, because you can hear, you know, how, this is so dumb, but how happy they were at the time, and how, you know, they were just thrilled with their success and actually, you know, getting into that headspace.
Yeah, I mean, I think probably the phrase is, and I know this might sound a bit strange after what came before it, but it's quite mature, isn't it? When you hear it back, you know, I can hear totally what you mean by a band that's had success. They haven't changed the formula too much, but it's dramatically a different album. It's dramatically different. There are more, you know, up kind of not up tempo, but up kind of keys, shall we say, in that kind of major, more happier phase, if that's what you want to call it as well. But there's also some that are extremely commercial too. Like there's one which I won't blow the name of the title. It'll come up when we do the playback, that I thought, God, that could be from somebody like Tesla. You know, there's you might know the one that I'm talking about. But yeah, there's some just phenomenal songs on it. I actually played it today in the car. I was driving my daughter around. She plays field hockey quite a lot, so I was driving back from dropping her off there, and I played it on the way up and the way back. And some of the goosebump moments that came out when you haven't heard it for a long time, I thought it still does what it did back in the day when I heard it for the first time. And yeah, just an amazing piece of work. And there's lots to talk about. So let's get into it, man. I don't want to
Right.
spoil all my kind of. I was taking a few mental notes today of, yeah, I need to mention that, because the one thing I will say, you touched on the fact that I'm a Queensryche fan. I would say out of all of the bands, even though they're not my absolute favourite, and I think for me, DT came to be my favourite through the years, and James played a big part of that, but I was always hugely blown away by Images and Words when I first heard it. But I would say some of the later Dream Theater albums took me a while to really appreciate them. I think when I was on the last show, I was telling you I wasn't so fond of 6 Degrees, and ever since I did that, I haven't stopped listening to it. So I've got a newfound love for it as well. So some kind of bands as well take that time to really rise to top, and DT did that for me as well. But it's also because of the volume of work that they've got. Like, I love everything that Dream Theater does. I think the only record that I don't connect with in any shape or form is the first one, and that's because I got into them in the second. So when I go back and listen to the Charlie Dominici phase, I'm like, nah, it doesn't really do it for me. And I don't truly hear the band that became Images and Words. I hear very small pieces of it, but yeah, I think what I'm saying is that Queensryche to that point were maybe always in the top 3 for me, but they were the biggest influence on Eden's Curse's music without a shadow of a doubt, because I think when I started Eden's Curse in 2006 with Michael Eden, I sat down with Mike and said, look, I want to write in the vein of Pink Cream 69 from Germany, a bit of Saxon, a bit of the kind of harmonies and the kind of commercialness of Journey, but it has to be wrapped up in a bit of Dokken, another of my favourite bands, and
love them. Yep.
And it was a lot of the chord shapes and those kind of minor chords that Queensryche used all over Mindcrime, all over Empire, and that for me was the template. We were both massive fans of all these bands, and we said if we can just take the best bits out of them. And really, when you think about it, we were just two music fans trying to produce music that we would love to listen to. And if we are successful and get signed and make a record that we're really proud of, then hell, that's the worst that can happen. We make a great bunch of songs that we are both proud of. And it really did form the shape of what our band sound became as well. So hugely pivotal. And I'll mention more as we go through some of the songs of, things that I thought I'd love to write a song like that, but never AI like, I'll go nick it, I'll turn it around backwards. We never went to that level. Although we used to get criticised for one of our biggest singles was the one that we did with James, and people always said we ripped off I Don't Believe in Love, and I went, no, I don't hear that at all. And it was only years later I heard it. In actual fact, I might have ripped off not I Believe in Love, but actually Hell's Bells by AC/DC. I think it was one chord that just moves a finger up, and it's just that note that people thought that's AC/DC, and then I heard it in I Don't Believe in Love later on. I went, oh, I see where they're coming from, but I had no idea. You just write it, and it certainly, it was never a lift and shift, is my point. But you're influenced with some of the voicings of guitar work or the style of riffs, etc. as well. And as we go through the album, John, I'll point out a couple of things on instrumentation and how they build songs and the dynamics. I think it might be the Thin Blue Line when it gets to the verse, all comes down to voice, keyboards, drums, and there's very little guitar, and the guitar comes in flashes, and the song builds and builds and builds. And these were the type of things that I took as a songwriter, as a mental note to, oh, I love the way that Queensryche did that on, what song was it? And you were going back through right, okay, let's try that and strip guitar out and let's just go down to drums, bass, and keyboard. And these were the types of things that I took more as a songwriter than taking a riff or a vocal or anything like that. That's what I really was influenced by.
Sure. Well, all right, so let's get some comments and let's dig into the first track here. Marcus Reyes says his first concert ever was Quiet Riot, Axe, and Queensryche in '83. Damn. Nice. That's pretty cool, man.
I remember Axe as well.
Yep. Hennig says Michael Kamen orchestration is amazing. Completely agree there.
Oh,
and,
yeah. That was my goosebump moment today. The Michael Kamen when it came in on you know what I'm talking about here.
Oh yeah, it's just beautiful, man. It's like you said, we won't ruin anything. We'll get there. So, Infinity Tripper, good to see you. Thanks for tuning in. Says I love Queensryche, my favorite political band. They're intelligent, well-spoken, and as a band, their music is fantastic, and their lyrics and top-notch Jeff singing is underpasses mind-blowing. So she's a big Queensryche fan there. And Hennig says Empire's the most complete Queensryche track, next to Eyes of a Stranger and Promised Land. That's an interesting take. Actually, I might agree with that. I think I would have to think a little more deeply on that, but Empire is definitely a complex song. When I think complexity on this record, I always fall back to Della Brown, but we'll get to that in a minute here. So,
one thing I didn't tell you, I'm not sure if you knew this, but I was Jeff Tate's booking agent in Europe for maybe 2 or 3 years. So I got to book Jeff around Europe and did several shows. So I worked for a company called Shock City Productions, and we looked after Jeff for quite some time, actually. So got to kind of know him on a personal level. He still sings phenomenally. He still sings amazing. The really strange thing about Jeff, the first show that we booked him for was in Glasgow maybe 5 years ago. And the three guys that we had this company together, one was a DJ in the town and the other was a kind of promoter. And I was the musician part of the kind of the triple threat, shall we say. But we were all stood outside. All three of us were huge Queensryche fans, and we were looking at the clock saying, right, they're due now. And we were quite nervous about meeting Jeff. And the van comes up and everybody gets out and we're saying, where's Jeff? And he gets out the driver's seat. Jeff was driving the van. No airs or graces. He was so humble, just an outstanding, lovely guy. He was the complete opposite of what I'd ever heard that he was going to be like. And my God, he sang like a bird every time I've seen him. So we maybe did 4 or 5, 6 shows together around the UK and got to see him up close and personal. Met Susan loads of times. My friend, one of the guys that I was standing with, he really got on very well with Jeff's daughter, who did the merch that night. And lo and behold, he ended up boyfriend and girlfriend, and he's been on tour with Jeff for about 5 years, playing lead guitar in his band, Kieran Robertson.
Really? So okay.
Yeah, if you've seen Jeff touring recently, Kieran.
I have.
Kieran was the kind of young guy with the tattoos and the black hair. And the other guy in bass is a Scottish guy, Jack Ross. That's his buddy. He's been playing bass. I think Kieran's just left maybe 6 months ago. He joined Faster Pussycat. So he left Jeff's band and he's now playing Faster Pussycat. But that was a surreal couple of years working with Jeff. And he told me lots of stories about touring the UK and Scotland. It was great. And that's where he got his love for whiskey, he said, Scotland, when he toured back in the days. So it was interesting. Lovely guy.
I saw him. I've actually seen him a couple times in the last few years, but I saw him most recently, I want to say last year, I think in 23. And you're right. I mean, he sounds great. And it was either a year before or a couple of years before that, but I actually caught him on one of his acoustic dates, and it was just awesome. I mean, to hear his voice, it's kind of like, A Beautiful Shade of Gray, like a voice like that stripped down over simple instrumentation where you can really get the core, the melody. It's so great. So Bo Van Bibber, good to see you, bro. He says, commercially, Empire's the winner. The second side is unreal. However, Rage for Order is my baby. I got to tell you, man, like, he, said, he says his daughter must have a penchant for getting with his guitar players. Didn't she date Parker when he was in Queensryche? Yes, she did. She did.
Remember, he has multiple daughters. That's the thing. I think that
That's
might
true.
have been the other daughter. Yeah.
Something I did not think we would get into on our deep dive would be the dating history of his
daughter. Jeff Tate's daughter's dating history.
Exactly. It's a true deep dive now.
Yeah.
All right. So let's dig into 1990s Empire, an excellent, excellent record. And of course, it opens with Best I Can. And, for me, I think this is, I think it's an excellent tone setter for the album because it's, I think what you get with this one, Paul, to me, it's a little more straightforward. I think Mindcrime goes in a little more different directions and stuff. I think, Empire is a little more straightforward. And this song in particular, I think you get that big melody. Again, like you said, we'll talk about the production all day long, but you notice right off the bat the crispness, the power. Eddie Jackson's bass tone is just second to none, and it's kind of commercial, I think, but I think it definitely works. And I think again, it's very, very powerful. And I think it really kicks the rest of the record in the ass. The guitar interplay I've always loved on this one. You get the little choir thing at the beginning. You're like, oh, okay. Yeah. So, I just think this is a great table setter for the rest of the record because it tells you you're going to get that Queensryche melody. You're going to get that a nice driving, groove throughout the whole thing. And, there is, a teeny bit of progginess in there, but it's a little more straightforward than Mindcrime. So, what are your thoughts on Best I Can?
Yeah. Again, I'm not entirely sure what the subject matter about is, but it's pretty heavy as well when you think about it. Pardon me, I'm going to show my age here and put my glasses on so I can read the book here. But yeah, phenomenal. I will make a statement. I believe that Eddie Jackson's tone on this album is the best bass recorded sound I've ever heard. And I've searched my entire life to try and get close to that and failed miserably many times. But, this song is a prime example of when it first comes to light. And I think, the use of keyboards I felt was very prominent and, right from the gate, you've got and then when the whole band kicks in, bong, you really hear the keys at that point as well. So that's an interesting kind of maybe slight change, or maybe they're more prominent in the mix than they were certainly on Mindcrime. I'm sure there's keys in there for sure, but a phenomenal song, just a great vibe about it, that dark undertone lyrically as well. But as you said, John, the production is just, absolutely incredible. The whole drum sound is just mind-blowing. And I'll not spoil it, but I think it's one of the songs coming up later. The hi-hats are just, oh my God, it's like, actually do yourself a favor do you remember the band Soraya?
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, go and listen to the album When the Blackbird Sings, and Peter Collins produced that round about the same period of time. And you can hear a lot of similarities, not quite as bad as Mutt Lange. You could listen to Def Leppard, Shania Twain and Bryan Adams, and it's almost like a cut and paste of the sounds. Right. You could swap the vocals over, and you could imagine Shania singing "Pour Some Sugar on Me," which the answer would be a definite yes, I shall. But the actual production on Peter Collins' Blackbird Sings, you can hear the same kind of gates that he used on the kit and whatnot, and right. Almost down to the tone, there's a very kind of clear similarity in the bass tone as well. But great song, what an opener as well.
Yeah, one of the things that I think that works very well on this one, you mentioned the keys, and I thought that was a great point because in the verses, they've got that just dent, and the guitars dent, and the bass is going, but they do have that like synth line over the top of it, like to fill in the kind of fill in the blanks there. And I think it blends excellently with the bass and everything. And like you said, it's definitely something I think new for them, in a way, because they had some of that kind of thing on Rage for Order, but that was kind of like an eclectic record.
Yeah.
It's kind of weird. Whereas, coming off of, Mind Crime, we're sitting there just expecting, just this total, five guys in a room kind of banger type of thing. But like you said, right off the bat, you get keyboards in there, which is really interesting. So yeah, and again, the production just stellar, and I'll definitely have to check that out. Like you said, that Soraya record, because I have not gone back and listened to that in a while, and I'll have to check it out and see like how close it is to the Empire production. But by the way, with the bass tone, Bo Van Bibber says the Spectre, Ampeg, and Roto Sound strings.
Yeah, I think you're right there.
Yeah. I know a buddy of mine is like Eddie Jackson is religion to him, and he will play nothing but Spectres. And he's like you. He's like, he has been searching for that Eddie Jackson bass tone forever. So yeah. Marcus
so
Reyes.
I had a deal with Warwick basses, so I used to get really favourable kind of deals with their equipment as well, because you can imagine being one of their artists. So I had all of their rigs, and they were just too clean and precise for me. And it was years later, I spent all my time trying to get it to sound like an Ampeg. And it was only years later when I was at one of their trade shows in Germany. I was telling one of their other artists, and they recommended a set of pedals, and they recommended dark glass pedals just to warm up the Ampeg and give it the bit of dirt that Eddie's got. And oh my God, it was the closest I've ever had. And I remember we did a 2-week tour in Germany, and almost every night people come up to me and say, dude, your bass sounds exactly like Eddie Jackson. And I'm like, that's the best compliment you can ever give me. And it happened nightly. So we did 13 shows in 14 nights. And every night somebody in the audience would come and speak to me afterwards and tell me that. It was phenomenal.
The dream has been realized.
Yeah, that's all I was after. Yeah.
Right. All right. So moving on to track 2, we have The Thin Line. And for me, I think there's a couple songs on this record that kind of, this record I think is known for being, I would say they're most commercial, not overstepping any bounds by saying that. But I think, this is one of the songs on this record that kind of keep you rooted in the Queensryche mystique, the Queensryche style. It's got that progginess to it. And, but it like the rest of this record, it's got the hallmark melodies and just enormous, that's the one thing that stands out so much on this record, I think, is how much they worked with the backing vocals and really made the choruses just enormous. And so I think this is a great example of that. But also, rhythmically, I think this is definitely a showcase for, Scott Rockenfeld. He's doing some really interesting stuff on here. So, some double time stuff with the cymbal play here and there. And, I just think this is a really interesting song. And I thought it was a great choice in terms of the track list to put this one immediately after Best I Can, rather than putting Jet City Woman up front. I think it spaces the album out well to go, here's this really commercial one, now here's one that's a little bit more proggy, like we're kind of known for, and then we're going to do another commercial one. Like, so I thought in terms of sequencing, it was a great decision to put this song second. And I think it also kind of sets a precedent for some other things that, some other songs, I should say, on the record. One of the things that I noticed is that even though you can call this, their most commercial record, some of the more commercial songs, right when the song you would think would be over, they kind of have these extended outros where they can show off a little bit. And, this one kind of has that as it kind of breaks itself down. And then, they introduce that other riff in there, and I thought that was really interesting. You've got the little bursts of like, the kind of like the horn section or whatever, bana. So that was a really cool thing to add. So just a really, really interesting song. And again, I think it was a brilliant choice to put this right after Best I Can, so that you're not thinking, wait, am I not going to get the typical Queensryche I like? Like, oh no, I am. Okay, cool. So, what do you think about The Thin Line?
Yeah, I think I agree wholeheartedly with everything that you said. And again, this is the one where it really showcases the dirt on that bass as well. You really start to hear it dun, 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 on the verse. Another hungry look.
Yeah. Yep.
phenomenal. And I'm glad you pointed out Scott, because Scott's work on those hats is just absolutely phenomenal. And it's very musical. You know, listen to, you know, I can't pretend to know what I'm doing being a bass player, but I can imagine what he's doing is lifting the pedal and playing the bell on it as well. So there's some just phenomenal work. It's all about what I was trying to tell you earlier on. It's not just listening to a band writing a good hook and a melody. That song is the prime example of dynamics. You know, it's light and shade. It's almost like a movie in essence. It starts off with a great, we're right in into the kind of song, and then it breaks down. And it's just dramatics too. It's kind of light and shade, black and white, whatever way you want to do it. And it's building up and building up to those, as you said, those explosive choruses, which I don't think there's a bad one on this record.
Totally agree.
And I guess interesting to know what Peter Collins' role and all that was as well. You know, yeah, that's the part that you don't know too much about, how much he played in fine-tuning these elements, but absolutely phenomenal. I'm also delighted you mentioned the outro, because there's many producers, I've had it countless times in my career, that say, look, this has gone on too long, but this was the type of band and the type of song that, and maybe we're the type of fan base that just love this stuff, because it's vibey, it's got a feeling to it. It's not Yngwie Malmsteen with 1,000 notes. It's all about the vibe. And one of the notes come up, the syncopated intro. Absolutely killer, absolutely killer. So that's them and their sweet spot and what they do very, very well. So that's a phenomenal track.
Yeah. And I you know, speaking of that outro, it's always been one of my favorite parts of the record.
Yeah.
Just because I like the combination of, you know, the little bit of proggy moments with, you know, the more straightforward kind of rock stuff. And I just think they blended it so well on this album. I mean, they were really firing on all cylinders. It's just, you know, like we said, the production. And I think the songwriting is just, I think the songwriting is very underrated on this album, because it is known as a commercial record, because people think of Silent Lucidity and Jet City Woman and, you know, some of the more straightforward type of songs. But I think that the songwriting on the album is really underrated, specifically because of songs like The Thin Line and, you know, the outro in particular, because, you know, you're getting into this, you know, you're okay, the song's going to end. And all of a sudden they're introducing another riff and another little bit of a interesting vibe to it, you know, at the end. And I just thought it was so cool to kind of add something else right where most bands would just be like, song's over. So, you know, I thought that was really, really cool. So
if you're listening on a good set of headphones, you'll get the panning between Chris DeGarmo and Michael Wilton. You'll get that kind of left. Really, really cool. Really cool. And it feels like you're listening, as you said earlier, it's one of those productions that you feel as if you could walk through the room where they're all performing, and you can go to the left and hear Eddie, you can go to the right and hear, you know, Michael, and then there's Chris and Jeff right down the middle with Scott. Phenomenal. There's so much space, there's so much power.
I mean, you know more about this than I do. You know, I'm just kind of a dumb fan, but you're a songwriter and you've done this professionally. Can you think of any other records off the top of your head that have a production like this? Because as we mentioned earlier, it's incredibly full, but the mix is perfectly done, but there's so much space in there. I mean, you nailed it. Like, you feel like you could walk in the room and, you know, the bass over here and, you know, Michael Wilton's over here and, you know, Chris DeGarmo's over here. Like, can you think of another record that is just done as well as this one? Because for me, I can't. I mean, you know way more than I do, but I just think that this might be the most well-produced record that I've ever heard. To me personally, anyway.
I've got one that tops it. But I think the really, really good albums with the really good producers have got that ability. I mean, it's all down to panning, EQing, so that it finds its own space in the mix as well, and that is an art form. I mean, there's I think DT's got one of the best in the business, and Andy Sneap right now working on the new album. So, I mean, he's an incredible producer. But my favorite produced album of all time is Pool by Winger. I think it's the best sounding album I've ever heard, and it's the same type of thing. There's so much power to it, but you can, you know, hear Red Beach on one side, you can hear all of Kip's vocals and all the acoustic guitars and the drums, and, you know, I think there's loads of examples of that, but there's something about Peter Collins mixes that are just different gravy. The other guy that I think is quite close to him is Terry Thomas, that did some of the latter day Tesla stuff. So if you hear like Busting Up with Tesla, wow.
Yep.
Go
Yeah.
and check that out. That's where you can hear the real panning of, I think Tommy Skeoch was still in the band then, if I remember right. Tommy and Frankie, you can kind of hear each side of the guitars, and it's an absolute powerhouse, but it's got that space as well. And he did the Giant albums, of course. They were phenomenal. The ones with Dan Huff, he did those two.
Yep. So Marcus Reyes says, Scott Rockenfeld is one of my favorite drummers, a big influence on me. Love his hi-hat work and fills on the thin line.
Yeah.
Doug McCauley says, Paul's mentioned Winger twice now. Didn't expect that, but I get it.
Yeah.
Awesome. And Bo Van Bibber, thanks for the segue. He says, I love the abrupt ending after the guitar lick, and boom, right into Jet City. Yeah, so let's move on there to track 3, which of course is the lead single, Jet City Woman. And this is a song to me. It may sound stupid, but it's always been a little bit underrated to me, because this being a song that, for, I would phrase it, the more casual Queensryche fan, I think everyone had so much love for Eyes of a Stranger that I think Jet City Woman got overshadowed a little bit because people were so into that sound. I think had Eyes of a Stranger not been as big as it was, I think Jet City Woman would get more love, because I mean, this song just has it all. And obviously, it got great radio play, and but we're talking about Eddie Jackson's bass tone, like it's on full display right here. I mean, this is just a straightforward banger. And it's it's one of those, Jeff Tate is a very, 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 very great lyricist, but this is one of his more direct, relatable type of lyrics. I think it's kind of the, hey man, I'm out on tour, I miss you type of vibe. And so you've got we're going to talk about this over and over again, excuse me. The massive chorus, you've got it's just a nice simple song structure, and you've got these lyrics that everyone can kind of dig into, and I think it all comes together to just make a perfect hit single for them. And I never hear people talking about this song a lot. And it's always, whenever I talk about it with people, that, oh man, but my friends are always, oh, Eyes of a Stranger and stuff. It's like, well, yeah, Eyes of a Stranger, it's kick ass, but I mean, it doesn't take away from the greatness of Jet City Woman. It's like, Queensryche, I think is awesome for the fact that they can write a Jet City Woman the same way that they can write stuff, like NM 256, or I always get the number wrong when I bring up that song, but all the weird kooky stuff on Rage for Order or Promised Land or something like that, but then they can just write a straight up rocking, relatable banger like Jet City Woman. So I love this song. I never turn it off. I'm doing a birthday show next year. One of my best friends is a phenomenal guitar player, and we have the same birthday, and we play a birthday show every year. And next year we decided, instead of doing an acoustic show, we're getting a band together, and we're going to play all of our favorite songs. And one of the first few that we immediately, both of us, brought up right away was, we're doing Jet City Woman. So I get to sing this one next year. So I'm excited for that. I just love this song. So where do you stand on Jet City Woman?
Oh yeah, I'm a huge fan. It's one of my favorite Queensryche songs of all time. Maybe being biased, being a bass player, it's just it's a staple that you've got to learn. In fact, if you go to YouTube, you'll find a cover of me doing it. And I wish I'd done it properly in the studio. It's quite old now, but I must recut it one of these days through the mixing desk. I've just done it with the mic open, but I'm just playing along because I found somebody had a bassless version of it. So I'd gone to see them a couple of times. In fact, I've only seen them once with Jeff, the full band. And it was after we did some work with Pamela Moore. She worked on her second album, so we were guests of Queensryche that night. And that was the Mindcrime 2 tour, actually, when I think about it. But I just couldn't take my eyes off of Eddie. And when you watch me playing, there's a couple of little licks that I do that are probably not on the studio version, but Eddie plays them live. And I thought, oh, I love that he did. I think it's just the do 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 don't Jet City. He puts this little, and he doesn't do it on the studio version, but I caught that he does it live, and I was really interested in watching him. So I went and did a cover of that. But I absolutely love the song. I mean, you know, for a bass player, it's just great. I love the verse work. You know, I love where the band are creative. It's not just dun dun dun. It keeps you on your toes when the double hits coming in as well. So you kind of need to remember Eddie plays a couple of chords in it, which is pretty cool. He's actually doing like a bar chord in the middle of the verse as well. So it's a really interesting bass track to learn. And I mean, the song's phenomenal. I do remember when we were working with Jeff that it wasn't me, but it was certainly one of my entourage in the company that we worked with had said to Susan, "Wow, he sounds amazing. And how honoured are you to be Jet City Woman?" She said, "I'm not."
Nice.
I think that was the other wife. So yeah, I don't know who he wrote that. I think that was the first wife he wrote about, but it's just a great song. What a chorus as well, you know.
Yeah.
Instrumentally, you know, when I mention this, go back and listen to the rhythms under the chorus. Down, 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 down. It's just phenomenal, just great music.
Yep. And I think, you know, speaking to the chorus, this is actually one of the more simplistic choruses on the record. There's not as much layering as you'll find on a lot of the other songs. But I mean, that just speaks to the power of the melody. And again, you know, I love that you brought up, the rhythmic choices underneath it, because I think that kind of, you know, when you have that simple vocal, you know, you need to put something else, you know, underneath it to kind of keep your ear. And I think they did a fantastic job on that. So, you know, a couple comments here real quick. Dirk Hoffman checking in. He says, special hello to Mr. Logue from the deep south of Germany. Nice. That's
my buddy Dirk. Yep. Hi, Dirk.
There you go. Awesome. Doug, Doug, you crack me up, man. I wish I could listen to the songs being talked about and still focus on what's being said. The struggle is real. Bo Van Bibber, thanks for tuning in, man. Have a good gig tonight, man. Bo's one of my very good friends from down in the area where I gig at. So I have to get around for my gig tonight. Won't be able to catch all of this, but my opinion, Empire is the perfect case of masterful songwriting by DeGarmo and Tate. You can't get more perfect than this. And Chris's high vocal harmonies are the glue that holds the record together. Just amazing, gentlemen. Yeah, you know what? Yeah, let's talk about that a little bit before we get into the next song here. So that's another thing that I think doesn't get nearly enough attention outside of, you know, fan circles with Queensryche is, you know, Chris DeGarmo's influence in terms of the vocal harmonies. You know, to me, it's almost like the Michael Anthony effect, you know, with Van Halen. Like, it's just something that is, you know, he's like the unsung hero of the band, at least in terms of the song, because we all know songwriting. That was a huge connection with him and Tate and Michael Wilton and stuff. But I don't think it gets talked about enough, just what a brilliant harmony vocalist he really was. So, and, you know, I mean, I know you do some singing and stuff like that. And it's, you know, what do you think about that? Because it's not easy to do what he does. And I don't think he gets nearly the credit that he deserves for it.
No, in fact, I'm going to actually admit that I wasn't really aware that he was the one doing that. So I'd never seen him with the band. So I missed that.
Okay. All right.
I've got certainly some of the live recordings that we've done, so I'm interested to go back and, you know, maybe see that. The main one, obviously, being Mind Live Crime. I've got that and haven't watched it for a while. But yeah, I didn't know that. So that's kind of news to me. But it's it's if you've got someone like that. I mean, Sambora was the same. His voice that worked with John. If you get somebody in tune like that, as you mentioned, one of the best cases is, you know, Michael Anthony worked well with Roth and Hager. He was phenomenal at that. By the way, I was the skinny Michael Anthony in a Van Halen tribute for 4 years. That's a true story. Before he was
that's
cut.
Awesome. Yeah, that is. Yeah. I'm jealous, man. Van Halen's my band, so.
Yeah, I learned a lot of Van Halen songs and all those high vocal parts. So yeah, they are hard. They are hard. But if you get a team that works well at that, it's worth its weight in gold. Yep.
All right. So we got a question for you here. So Perry Vanderape, good to see you, man. He says, never got myself into Queensryche. Where do I start? So what would you say? What would you say that would be a good record for him to dip his toes in with?
I think this might be the one to do it because, Mindcrime is a heavy listen in regards to, as a concept. It's very entertaining from start to finish. But I think this is the one that might get you in straight away because there are more accessible songs for sure. Whereas if you were to dip your toes into Mindcrime, you might go, "What the hell is this?" I mean, you and I both get in. I then went back and got Rage for Order and Warning, etc.
Yep.
But it was definitely the one that got me. And I'm always a fan of a greatest hits because you can get a feel of the evolution of the band as well. You can kind of hear how they've gone. I know a few people have mentioned Promised Land, but I did not like that album at all, and still don't. Don't. My buddy insists that I'm smoking pot, and he says, "Go and listen to it." And I called him and said, "Hey, I listened to Promised Land," and he said, "What?" And I went, "You're right." And they went, "What?" I says, "It's still rubbish."
See, so you never know. I'm a huge fan of that record. I can see why you wouldn't like it and why Queensryche fans started jumping off the bandwagon with that one. It's a very weird, eclectic kind of. It's kind of all over the place in a way, but I think that's kind of why I like it. It's not quite the stuff they would do later, which being completely honest, everything from Here and the Now Frontier through Frequency Unknown, I'm just like, not a fan.
Yeah, I stopped buying their albums after a while, and I remember walking through Edinburgh. I was over there with my wife for a day, and I saw their new album in the window. I think it was American Soldier, and I said, "I don't want to buy this," and she said, "Well, don't buy it." I says, "But I have to." And she said, "Why?" I says, "Because it's Queensryche." And then 2 days later, she says, "What do you think of the Queensryche album?" I said, "It's fucking horrible."
Right. It was so disappointing, wasn't it?
Yeah. I must admit, I do like the Todd Latour albums. I think they're promising, but they're not old Queensryche, are they? And I went and seen the band live with Todd, and they're amazing.
Yes.
And as you've heard, I had people in, especially the guy whose son joined Queensryche, Gordon, went, "Oh, you can't go and watch Jeff and Todd Latour at the same time." I said, "Who says not?" And I know Jeff's gone to see them himself. So they were doing a festival in Sweden, I think it was, and he went down and watched them and met them, all said hello, and things seemed to be quite good. Everybody's in a good place with each other. So look, there's nothing to say that you can't enjoy both versions of it. And what the new band do resonates more than anything they've done, even from Promised Land. So I'm not a subscriber to the fact that everything went to pot when this man left, because everything went to pot when that man was still in the band, to my ears.
Yeah, you're not wrong. I mean, Here in the Now Frontier was, what in the fuck is this? I mean, like I said, I'm a huge fan of Promised Land, so who knows? Maybe you'll listen to it again like you did with 6 Degrees, and maybe you'll enjoy it. We'll have that effect again.
That one's definitely off the table.
You're like, nope, F you, bro. It's not happening.
I mean, for me, the best song on it was I Am I, and the way that I thought was that wouldn't get on either Empire or Mindcrime. What are you taking off to bring that in?
Yeah,
and that was the best song for me.
I see. I again, it walks right up to that line of being too weird for me, and stops. So I think it's a well produced record. I like some of the quirkiness to it. I think there's just enough of the classic sound on there for me. Again, it's weird. It's one of those records where like you're like, screw that record, I hate it. Like I can understand why people don't like it. I would never. It's not a record I'd be like, are you crazy? I'm like, yeah, I get it. I mean, I can totally understand why fans wouldn't like it. And interestingly, like I had read about Empire saying, it's the band that, writing from perspective, they made it. They're successful. They're happy. Jeff Tate's on record saying Promised Land was written from they were a bunch of guys that were like, okay, we made it. We're high on the hog. Now what the hell do we do? It's like confusion and not sure what the future is going to hold or where they go. And you can hear that in the songs, man. I mean, it's a very disjointed album, I think. But so yeah, all right. So there you go, Perry. So start with Empire. If you're looking for the more straightforward stuff, I would say the first record, the EP, is that, the warnings like that. And then, I would say Promised Land is weird. Rage for Order is a huge fan favorite. That one's a little weird. The greatest thing you can listen to by Queensryche, though, is definitely Operation Mindcrime. It is in my mind, Paul, I would guess you agree. To me, it's a perfect album. Absolutely perfect. Yeah.
10 out of 10.
Yeah,
Desert
for sure.
Island disc. Yeah.
Yep. Just amazing. So, speaking of amazing, let's get on to the fourth track here. And it's actually my favorite song on the record. Della Brown. Yeah. Exactly. Yeah. I don't know why. Like, whenever I think of this album, for some reason, this song pops into my head. And I think it's just like, it's just, there's a certain vibe and atmosphere to this one. It's kind of, it's not up like the rest of the record. It's not, uplifting. It's kind of a sad story, and the instrumentation to me is just fabulous. I love, the and the drums are kind of coming in. It's just a beautiful song in terms of the writing and the sound. And again, it has a vibe. I think this one and Anybody Listening are the two on this record that I feel like really have an atmosphere to them that kind of stand above the other songs. And, I just think that this is
above Silent Lucidity.
Yeah, but why? Because I mean, we'll talk about that when we get there, because there's no spoilers since we're trying to, but you bring up a great point. But I do have thoughts on that. Yeah, I don't know. Della Brown is just awesome. And again, we talked about those like long outros, and this one, the outro is damn near 3 minutes.
Yes.
And it has my favorite moment on the record. I'm a big fan of, when you can really hear someone feeling what they do. And in the outro to this song, there's one moment with the guitar solo, which is my favorite solo. It's one of my all-time favorite Queensryche solos to begin with, is in the outro to this. But there's that one that was like, and you could just hear him grinding into that note and bending it, and it's like you could just picture the lead guitar face on him and stuff like that. Like, and I think it juxtaposes up against the feel of the rest of the song so nicely, and it is just so interesting to my ear, and I love how it plays off of what you have heard for the previous 6 minutes or whatever. And so this song I just think is beautiful. It's one of my all-time favorite Queensryche songs, and I just think it's really, really interesting. And the fact that this is my favorite song on the record probably makes it no surprise that I do love Promised Land, because if anything from Empire could end up on Promised Land, this would definitely be the song. So, so where do you stand with Della Brown?
I can hear that. Yeah, I mean, another one of the bass player staple. You have to learn Jet City Women. In fact, if I remember correctly, if you watch my YouTube video, as soon as I finish playing Jet City Women, I begin playing bong bong doo doo, burning, because you've gone through your life knowing those two passages of music. But yeah, the one thing that strikes me about Della Brown, and I might be imagining this, but did they ever shoot a video for that? Was that a video that they released?
I don't know if it was. I know that that's basically the one song that you can find easily on YouTube from the Unplugged show.
Right.
So I know they did that, but I don't know if they did a video for it or not.
Well, it's maybe my mind, because what I was going to say to you was, because of the kind of sound effects they've got with it, whenever I hear it, it's got a cinematic quality to it, and I just picture like a black and white scene of the rain coming down and the traffic going by as well, and it just builds into the song, and it lends beautifully. There's Ralph Zizek.
Yeah, the same for the Dark East, Paul Logue. There you go.
This is the German contingent signing in to say hello. So Ralph's a great guy from Germany. Yeah, good friend of mine.
Grüß Gott, wie geht es Ihnen? There we go, a little bit of German from.
Well, there we go. That's more than I've got. I can say Kaffee mit Milch, bitte.
Well, at least you got your CH pronunciation correct. So there you go.
Yeah, I'm
You know.
glad you noticed that. That's the Germans that taught me that. So this song is amazing. Love the another example of the kind of voicings that we used for Eden's Curse of those minor type chords. This is all over Beautiful Shade of Grey, and I'll give you the one in particular would be Give and Take. So listen to the and listen to the chords behind it. Down, 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 down.
Yeah. Okay.
So that's very, very Queensryche. It's a minor step down,
Sure.
all in A actually. It's all played in A, and it's that type of thing. But they've got that. I'm not sure what the kind of effect is they've got on it, but they've got that kind of choral effect on the guitar that almost gives it that kind of Wurlitzer sound to it. That Dave Gilmour used it a lot, but it's got that beautiful rotary is the effect I was looking for. But it absolutely sings out at you. And if my ear picks up correctly, they've got an acoustic stuck behind it, just doubling what they've done on the guitars, and it's absolutely beautiful. But as you say, the room that it's created with the kind of drums, the bass line, which is beautiful, these haunting chords, and then Jeff's vocals just majestically going over it. It's just a sensational song.
Yep.
Choirs as well. Oh, there's no crying. Just phenomenal. You know, really, really amazing song. One that I love. And as you said earlier, JT, the outro, that 3-minute outro is just, you know, fantastic. Like the Thin Line that we spoke about. That's the kind of stuff that's just ear candy for especially anyone with musical leanings. You can hear that being extended live. You know, I never caught any shows. In fact, I think there is a gig in this box set, which I've never watched, so maybe I'll do that after tonight. I'll go and watch it as I'm at home, so I might crank it out. And I'd love to have heard that and seen it played live as well, because it's just an absolute killer song. Great vibe set. Yeah.
That's one of those ones I you know, on future tours with Todd LaTorre that I hope that they pull out. I think that's one of those deep tracks that the fans would just completely eat up. And I know me, if I, the stage goes to black and you hear like the cityscape sound effects, and I'd be like, what? No. And I'd be happier than a pig and shit. I'd be like, yeah, Stella Brown. So
kind of like when DT rolled out Space Divest, you were like, what?
Yes.
That coming.
See, I'm glad you're on here because Brian is an idiot and he hates that song. And I love Space Divest. That song is criminally underrated.
Mm-hmm.
I'm so glad you brought it up. I'm glad Brian's not here. He might be listening somewhere.
Get it sorted, Brian. Get it sorted.
Nice. I think Space Divest for him is Promised Land for You. Ain't gonna happen. So
at least it's one song. He's got one song. I've got a whole album.
True. See, Doug McCauley's on our side, man. He says Brian is an idiot.
Come on, Doug.
Oh, that's awesome. See, that's a hallmark of the show. When one of us can't be on, the other one purposely makes fun of the other guy because he can't defend himself. the sign of true friendship.
Isn't this the beauty of music? So it's so subjective. Beauty's in the eye of the beholder, etc. We some people get so excited about one thing and some days the other. It's the beauty of it that you can have that debate. It's different when you compare it to things like sports or whatever. It really does bring home to you the fact that it is an art you're dealing with. And if you ever walk into a museum and look at the art on the wall, some people see brilliance, some people see mediocrity, and some people see absolute crap. And that's what music does. So it's strange how something tickles us. And we've all got an album that people hate that you love, and it might be the first thing that you ever listen to, and that's just the way it goes. Things like a lot of the bands that I loved, the albums would be, I would say, if I take Dokken, for example, I got into Dokken on Back for the Attack, and I know a lot of people prefer Under Lock and Key, but for me, Back for the Attack's, it means more to me, if you know what I mean.
Yeah.
So it can be where you started, where you dived in, and it's really subjective to everyone, I think.
Yep. By the way, I'm with you on Back for the Attack. I think that's just a George Lynch wank fest, and I love it. It's some of those solos go on for weeks.
Oh, yeah.
I just picture the producer in the control looking at his watch like, God, what? How many? Like,
so, I've gone for a Ian come back up and George is still going.
Exactly. All right, Craig Moran, I think I'm going to disagree with you here. He says, if Kevin Moore hadn't left the band before they had a chance to play it live, I don't think anyone would give a shit about Space Divest. See, I'm going to disagree with that, Craig, because having been into the band for a long time, a lot of my buddies who enjoy Dream Theater really like that. And they don't know anything about the history of, Kevin Moore and what they were dealing with at that time. So I think it's just one of those like deep track, quirky, weird things that people do like. And I just think it's kind of, the legend of it has grown because of what we know about, Kevin Moore and leaving the band and stuff like that. So, and I have a personal connection to it with this show because Brian, when we did our Awake deep dive, he said Space Divest is a gorilla fart. And I started laughing. I thought he was talking about like a gorilla farting. And he's like, no, the drink. I said, what the hell is a gorilla fart? And apparently it's some god-awful shot that's Jägermeister, whiskey, and vodka. And I was like, we do a fan hangout every December at Christmas. And it's like a 3-hour, we just get fans on to co-host. And I said, I'll drink a gorilla fart, on the air. And it's become a yearly thing. And those things are god-awful. So I have Space Divest to thank for that. So it's
I have to explain. I'm throwing cheesy puffs at my dog. My dog likes cheesy puffs, but it's getting too close to knocking my acoustic guitar over, so I'm having to throw it.
Distracting him.
Yeah, I'll let you see. It's a she. She's peeking out. I can turn this round. Can you see her?
I'm a huge dog person. Where's she at? Oh, there she is. Okay, there we go.
She's not coming in for the cheesy puff.
She's staying away from the guitar, I mean,
yeah, she doesn't like the guitar. She's heard enough of my bad playing. That's why.
Well, I mean, at least she's not going to knock it over, because if she knocked over the guitar, it would be Another Rainy Night.
Correct.
So, such a terrible segue, but I had to do it. Brian has his cheesy jokes. I've got mine. So, so the next track on the record obviously is Another Rainy Night. And, I think this is another, I almost feel like this should have been another single from the record, because this one is just so catchy. Again, I think this is a very relatable Jeff Tate lyric. I mean, who can't relate to, I'm bummed out over a woman or a boyfriend or whatever. And, this song melodically, I think to me is the strongest on the album. I think this is, like Della Brown always stands out to me when I think of this record, but Another Rainy Night to me, when I think of all of the hallmarks melodically of the Empire album, this is the song that kind of comes to mind. And, like we said before, another just monster chorus, one of the very best on the record. I'm always a big fan of harmony guitars, and this one obviously, the main riff pretty much is, Michael Wilton and Chris DeGarmo getting together and so, I mean, there's nothing on this song that I dislike, and it's just really, really catchy. It's like an earworm. It just, I always go back to this one. I karaoke this, whenever I've done karaoke competitions, I if I've got a fresh voice, I'll throw this one in to see if I can hit some notes. And like, it's just a really, really, really great song. And, Craig Moran is on the same page. He says, from the first second of the dual guitar intro, this song is phenomenal. Yeah, totally agree with that, man. So, what are your thoughts on Another Rainy Night?
Yeah, again, I think you and I are really in tune on this, John. So totally, I think when I first heard it, and to Craig's point there, I noticed how I called him Craig. That's the way Scottish people call him, not Craig. We say Craig.
Oh, sorry.
Where is he from?
All right, Craig, you got to tell us where you're from there. I think I'm trying to remember where he's from. I think he told us before, but throw it in the chat, Craig. I compliment your German and you rip on my Scottish. What the hell is that, Paul? Come on now.
That's English.
Oh, well, okay. Well, sorry. All right. I'm bowing out. I got it wrong in all respects.
But
look at that. He's from New Jersey. There we go.
Oh, well, he'll be Craig.
Nice. So,
but it's a good Irish name he's got anyway. I can see that.
There you go.
But yeah, amazing song. I love it. To Craig's point, the harmony guitars, very Maiden actually. They put me in mind of Maiden. And I think this is, I remember back in the day, I used to make mixtapes for friends, or when Eden's Curse would tour, I used to do a lot of playlists that we could take to venues for headline shows, because I hate going to gigs and you're thinking, what the fuck, they've got Eminem on and you're here to see Tesla. So I used to make sure that mixtapes up for people in the audience that might like similar bands that we like. And this was always one that I would put on, because I would just go A to Z, and I'd go to A to Z on the iTunes and just playlist shit. And I would just say to our sound engineer, we used to carry a little iPod, and he used to just shuffle it. And that was the one for the Queensryche. I thought something kind of short, snappy, and commercial. And it was always Another Rainy Night that came out. And I loved hearing it. If I was walking through the venue to catering or something, occasionally you'd hear it coming up, and you're like, ow. But love it. Again, as we keep coming back to the drums, the bass, just some great work on this. And as you touched the point, the chorus is just, I agree with you, probably one of, if not the best on it. Very, very good song.
Yep. And I think, going back to Scott Rockenfeld, I think there's some really cool stuff, even in the intro, because it's a very straightforward groove, and it does get into the groove, as it comes in, but there's that kind of like the weird kind of vibe to the intro of it that he's doing on the hi-hat and stuff. And just like I said, I think that's something that they did so well on this record, is even though the songs are a little more straightforward, there's those little tidbits that make it so musical. And so it's not just turning into an AC/DC record, so
even things like I mentioned earlier, the layers and the dynamics that they build. One that really strikes me about this song is during the verses. I don't know if it's the first one. It's like, can't close the door. And he's kind of playing these kind of chords. I'm not sure who it is between Mike or Chris, but one's doing the clean chords, and then towards the end of the verse, someone comes in on 16s. So it's like on the guitar, kind of heavier. And it just builds the atmosphere of the song towards the kind of bridge pre-chorus section. And they were masterful at that as a band. And that for me is the thing, like those little details and the kind of minor chords and hooks and riffs that they had in those two albums are really what I missed on Promised Land. That's why I don't like it, because I can't connect with it on a musical and a fan point of view. I just don't hear the hooks that got me on Empire and Mindcrime in that record. So whilst I appreciate they're an amazing band and they can write songs and there's many, many good parts of it, they're just not interesting enough to me like this kind of stuff was. That's where I kind of really just didn't connect with that album at all. But this is one of the best songs on it, hands down.
Yeah, totally agree. All right, so moving on to track 6, we have the title track, of course, that being Empire. And again,
this Saturday, 5:24 p.m. I'm going.
It's starting to hit me like a 2-ton heavy thing. I've always wondered why they tacked that onto the beginning of Empire rather than the end of Another Rainy Night. That's always been strange to me. It's such a like if you skip tracks, I'm like, that's kind of odd. But so Empire, again, is one of the proggier songs. I think this is one of the ones kind of like, we're talking about Della Brown and some other stuff on the Thin Line. One of those songs that kind of reminds you that you're listening to a Queensryche record and you're not just listening to a band trying to get more radio play. And it's very political, as I think they are somewhat famous for. Jeff Tate likes to kind of mix it up in that arena a little bit. But again, a very interesting song. It's always been kind of interesting to me how popular this is with the fan base, because this is when I first got the record. If there was one song where I was kind of like, yeah, this is okay, it would have been this one. It's grown on me over the years, and now I love it. Yeah,
really,
and
wow.
Yeah, I've never been able to figure out why, but I'm totally on board with it now, like everybody else is. But this is the one that took some time to grow on me, I think, and but since then I totally get it. It's a very simple groove. It just breaks down, like everything fades out in the verses until it comes to good, like, so that's awesome. It's a very, again, I think this is one of the really atmospheric type songs on the record. So I really, really enjoy it for that reason. You know, and this is also one of the longer songs on the album. And you know, I like it. I like it for that reason. I think there's a lot to it. There's a lot of meat on the bone.
Yeah.
And it's very interesting. And again, like I said about Thin Line and stuff, I really love how they juxtaposed the straightforward rocking, you know, air quotes radio type songs with songs like this. So I think that's what makes this album so accessible, excuse me, and such a crossover hit, is that it does appeal to both sides. Like if you know, if you bought the record for Jet City Woman and Silent Lucidity, there's enough there that you love. If you bought it as a hardcore Queensryche fan expecting stuff from, like, you know, The Warning and Rage for Order, there, you know, you've got songs like Empire and Della Brown. So I think this is a nice amalgamation of everything on the record. You know, like I had said about, you know, Best I Can being a great kickoff to the record because it tells you what you're going to get. I think Empire is the other side of that coin. You know, this is the more progressive side of that coin. So I think I really, really like it for that reason. So what do you think about Empire, the title track?
Yeah, so it is my favorite Queensryche song of all time. I'm going to go as far as saying it is the riff of the album. I'm not quite sure it's the riff of their career, but I see this very much as their Kashmir. It's their mid-tempo absolute banger. It's got that dark, deep, kind of lyrical vibe to it. It's got a kind of you know, undertone of kind of nastiness to it as well.
Yes.
Dare I say a little bit of Black Sabbath in the pace of it and the kind of darkness of the riff. I just think it's phenomenal. The minute I heard it, I thought, holy shit, this is phenomenal. Again, another type of song that would have hugely influenced me with Eden's Curse, of the type of guitar voicing and vibe that I'd want to create. Love the middle section. I'll never forget being, I can't remember if we were watching them live or in a club somewhere and the song came in, and my friend Chris Russell, who lives down in England, leaned into me just before Jeff did in the year 1986. He said, "Here comes the moany bit."
Nice.
which was really dry and very, very well timed humor. But if you listen to the musical piece behind that, doom, doo doo doom, doo doo doom, doo 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 doom, that's just phenomenal, and it's building and building and building. And the solo for me is just, you could sing it.
Yeah.
You know, it's just absolutely singing out. Perfect piece of music. A song I would love to have covered. And we always did do a cover, especially in the Japanese releases with Eden's Curse, because they always wanted a track. And, you know, traditionally we would get into the studio and cut the songs that we loved. We hated bringing in, you know, ones that were left over, because they're left over for a reason. But it gave us a bit of fun to do some covers. So we did Unchain the Night on the third album, which James sang on. And for the next album, before the singer left, we were planning to do either Empire or Jet City Women. So we were always going to do a right track. We wanted to cover the bands that we just absolutely loved. And dare say we would have done a Zeppelin one, we would have done a Kiss one further down the line, and things like that. So that was definitely on the list to do. But yeah, I just absolutely love this song. And I think when I saw Jeff the first time with Mindcrime 2, so they played Mindcrime 1, took a break, did Mindcrime 2, and Mindcrime 1 was just phenomenal. Mindcrime 2, we were looking for the petrol and the matches. It was that boring.
Yeah.
Then they came back out and they played Lucidity, Jet City Woman, and Empire. And I can't remember the order. I think it was Lucidity. Let me think. I think it was Lucidity, Empire, and they finished in Jet City Women. And for an encore, it was just like absolute knockout. You come away from that gig forgetting about the last hour you'd seen completely because of the encore. But just three of the best songs ever. Yeah.
Has there ever been a bigger letdown than Operation Mindcrime 2? I hated even the concept of it. I said, there's no way you're following this up. The records before it, since, Promised Land for me, and obviously for you since Empire, were just not good. And then all of a
Yeah.
sudden we're gonna do Mindcrime too. It's like, oh my God, no, that can't, no, really.
You can't imagine DT doing Images and Words too. I think
Nope.
you've just got to move on as a band. Find something fresh. It reeks to me of a band that were just struggling for ideas.
Yeah.
Let's
Yep.
go back and rehash what we done, and it was a disaster. No,
Yeah.
not even Ronnie James Dio could save it.
Yeah, right. If Dio can't save it, it's crap.
Yeah.
All right, so getting into the second side of the album, we have Resistance, and I think this is a song I always forget about, because I think about so many other songs, but this song is awesome. And one of my favorite parts about this song is there's so many different key changes in it, and it's always bouncing around, and it's a vocal workout for Jeff Tate in a lot of ways. But man, it's just it's just so catchy, and I absolutely just love where this song goes. And I think it's like the perfect way to open side 2. And by the way, I think I'm wrong on the key changes. I think I was just thinking of Hand on Heart. Never mind. So I'll save that for Hand on Heart. I was thinking of a different thing. But anyway, yeah, I think this is a perfect opening to the second side of the album, because when I first bought this as a kid, I was listening to the cassette, and you get through Empire and you're like, damn, okay. And then when you flip it open, or flip it over, excuse me, and then this comes on and you're like, oh damn, all right. And I think it's kind of a perfect way to do it, because it's kind of got that that driving rhythm like Best I Can. So it kind of starts out side 2 the way that Best I Can started out, the front half of the record. And I was just about to mention Scott Rockenfeld in this one, and Craig Moran, Craig or Craig, depending on how you want to do it. He says Scott Rockenfeld is the MVP of Resistance. It's the perfect way to open up side 2. Yeah. And you were talking about the riff on Empire, and I love the riff in this one. Like, so I mean, it's just a kick-ass riff, and it's just a driving, rocking song. And again, the sequencing on this album is just perfect in my eyes. And I think it's a brilliant way to start out the second side of the record. I think it's a brilliant follow-up to Empire in terms of the order of the songs. And Jeff Tate, again, just what a workout for him. And just an exceptionally layered chorus and whatnot. It's just a great song. And I think it's a pretty unheralded song. A lot of my buddies who are into Queensryche never seem to bring this one up, even though it's a banger to me. I really, really love this song. So what do you think about this one?
Yeah, I think again, very similar to my thoughts. It is one that I forget about. Even when I read the title, sometimes I'm like, what does that go like again? And then you hear it. I always thought it had a little Eddie Van Halen vibe to the lick at the beginning. You can almost imagine Eddie playing that. It's kind of cool. Love. I agree with you. It's a great riff for sure. But yeah, I mean, the vocals on it are just sensational. There's a lot of shifts that Jeff's doing, and I can't even imagine how he would have done this live back in the day, but I'm sure he absolutely did it. I always thought, maybe being a bit controversial, I always thought that side 2 wasn't as strong as side 1 on Empire. Okay. There are some phenomenal songs on it, but I think partly it's to do with just how good the songs are on the first side. I don't know if subconsciously I listened to, because it was cassette I had first of all, and then bought the CD, this is the original actually. I had the cassette of it for many years, and I wonder if I just kept rewinding and listening to side 1. I can't confirm if I did that or not, but I always hold the first 6 songs in a higher regard, and I don't mean that in a negative way. But when I played it back today and the weeks leading up to this, I forgot how good the second side was as well.
Yeah,
because you're thinking. Yeah, I remember Hand on Heart always jumped out at me, but Resistance sometimes I always looked and thought, I can't remember that, but it's a great song. It's a great song. So Yeah, but I'm the same. I don't think any of my buddies bring it up a lot.
Yeah, I
Maybe,
I
maybe because it never really. I don't think it's ever made any of the gigs that I've been to, and either
no.
carnation of the band. I've never heard them play it live. I'm sure they did back in the day when they were touring it.
Yeah, I mean, to me, it's well. Here we go. Andrew Richard, really good album. Good to see you, man. Thanks for checking it out. Marcus Reyes, here we go. He says, "Resistance, an okay song, but I always thought it was filler."
I'm, I'm I'm bordering that. I have to say that with Marcus. I'm bordering that. That's probably why I hold Mindcrime just above Empire, because I felt side two had a couple of fillers on it. And
Okay.
when I'm saying fillers, they're good songs, but they're not great songs. The first six are absolute knock 'em out of the park, great songs. Some of the ones in side two, apart from the obvious ones, of course, for me were a wee bit filler. Yeah.
I can see that, and I think for me, you know, you make an excellent point that the side two does get overshadowed by the quality of side one, and I think for me, because I'm aware of that, I think that's why I have an appreciation equally
Yeah.
for side two, because I try to take that out of it. It's
Yeah.
like I don't want to kind of look negatively upon these other songs because the other ones are so great. You know what I mean? Like, so a song like Resistance, I think is it's awesome. But like you, I do kind of forget about it sometimes. But that's the only one on the record like that, because everything else around it is just so damn good. But every time
Yeah.
I go back to, I love it. I think it's a great song. I think it's a little underrated. Craig Moran says Resistance was the show opener on the Building Empires tour.
Wow. Okay. Wow.
Awesome. I'll have to look that up. Correct me if I'm wrong, but wasn't the Building Empires tour, wasn't that when they actually did Live Crime?
I can't remember. I'll check out this because this box set's got something live in it. Let me tell you what it was. I'm sure it's a show from that period. Oh, it's the DVD Building Empires.
There we go.
In fact, there we go. It's got Live at London, and it is Resistance as the opening song.
There we go. Look at
And
that.
it was Walk in the Shadows, which is another amazing song. Best I
Yes.
Can, Empire, Thin Line, Jet City Woman, Road to Madness, Lucidity, Hand on Heart, Take Hold of the Flame.
So basically playing most of the Empire record.
Yeah, guess what I'm watching tonight then?
Right. That's your evening entertainment. Yeah,
No,
Andrew Richard said.
Sorry, I was just going to say, I've had this upstairs in my studio for a couple of months, and I really played the Mindcrime one back to back, and it's got a full book which I haven't even read yet, but it's the making of. So
Yeah.
I need to kind of do that. But it's got some amazing, I don't know if you've got this, but it's got some amazing artwork in it. And I think this was an EMI release that the band weren't behind or aware of. I can't remember what the story in that was.
Yeah, I bought the Mindcrime one, but I don't have the Empire one.
Yeah, it's good. But I've seen that DVD. Somebody gave me a loan of it. I had it on a VHS, Building Empires, and I remember the band, and I just remembered that today, and I had no idea it was included in this box set. So there you go. I'll be watching that tonight.
Look at that. Now you're going to make me buy it. You're going to watch it, and I'm going to spend money on it.
I hope you still get it, because it was a while ago.
Yeah, it was, because I've had that Mindcrime one since I lived at my old place, and that was a few years ago. So, all right. So I think the song that everybody thinks of when they think of this record, pretty much, at least if you're an average casual fan, obviously is the next song, Silent Lucidity, and kind of a creepy song. And, I like it a lot. I think for me, at least, it suffers a little bit from being overplayed. But I don't know. It's just such a moody, atmospheric song, and I can picture Jeff Tate in the video in my head, as I'm listening to it. With this kind of solo spotlight with like the blue and black background, and just a very very moody atmospheric song, especially when you consider the lyrical content, because it's really kind of kind of like cringy in terms of what he's talking about when what it's about. So I think that kind of adds to it. And you've got the little voiceovers and stuff, especially coming out of that bridge section into the last verse, help me, it's
Yeah.
kind of, and when you put that up against, the beautiful, nice soaring vocal that he's doing, it's like, woo. So I think this one definitely paints just an awesome picture in terms of, just I hate to keep coming back to it, but there's an atmosphere to this song that is just awesome. And I love when bands can do that, when they take something seemingly as simple as a song like this and just build something amazing out of it and make you feel something so strongly. And the orchestra in it is just wonderful, and melodically it's awesome. And the backing vocals, I think, really stand out on this one in particular.
Yeah.
I love how they used it as almost like a whole nother instrument. So I'm always a big fan of when bands do that. So yeah, this is, I love it. Like I say, I think it's a little overplayed for me, but I think that's just because people who aren't huge Queensryche fans will fall back on this one.
Yeah.
Other than that, I mean, this is just a kick-ass song. It's such a standout track. So what do you think about this one?
Yeah, I mean, God, I would even go as far as saying this is one of the best songs I've ever heard, period. It's such a well-written song. I'm maybe not overly familiar with the subject matter that you're talking about, so I'm going to have to go and look at that. I'm going to have to go and look that up now. I do have a friend who's lost his child, and this was what they played at the funeral. So I've got another kind of meaning behind the song as well. And I remember watching that man in tears when we heard Jeff perform it acoustically for the first time. So that was a beautiful moment. But I agree with you, the song, I mean, it was one of the first things when you start to play guitar to a reasonable level. I must learn Wanted Dead or Alive by Bon Jovi. I must learn Silent Lucidity by Queensryche. And it's a tough song to play as well. It's not the easiest, but it's absolutely beautiful, beautifully written. We mentioned kind of earlier in the start that Michael Kamen's production of the orchestra on this is just sensational. It's got that movie soundtrack quality that that he does day in, day out. It's meat and potatoes for him, but it adds to that atmospheric piece of it, and it sounds absolutely massive. If you look at rock bands today, you touched on Symphony X, but go and pick something that's maybe not a top 10 selling artist like a Nickelback or whatever. Go and pick somebody who's kind of smaller but still very successful and listen to her production, and then go and listen to a Taylor Swift production, and you will hear the difference in dollars. This production's like a Taylor Swift production. It's absolutely massive. If you've got a decent hi-fi, I've got a Sonos surround in here, and it just sounds incredible in here on it. But my God, what a song! There's not a bit on it that doesn't give you those goosebumps. That was the song that the hairs on my arm were up today as I was driving my daughter back from hockey. Every time I hear it, it just makes me feel like it's something from a higher power. So I've got a group of friends. We all go to gigs. We are called the Counts of Tuscany on our WhatsApp. And we have a saying of the music from the gods, and Freebird's in there, Hotel California's in there, Kashmir's in there. This is a definite music for the gods. You can tell Count of Tuscany might be in there. That's a hint to it. But this is absolutely music from the gods. It's when a band got everything right, from production, producer, performance, lyrics, even the videos is cool as fuck. When you mentioned the old MTV with the colours, it's simple, straight to the point, and no wonder it's overplayed, John, because it deserves to be. And I'm sure there's many of a couple have got married to it, conceived, you name it, funeral, as I've just mentioned. It's that type of song that it can translate into a whole host of people's lives. And it's, I've had the privilege of seeing it been performed several times, and you just see what it does to the audience. It's incredible song.
Yeah, totally agree. I do need to clarify real quick. When I said that it's a creepy vibe or it's kind of cringe, like, that's more personal to me. I should clarify that, because it's about, like the ability to control dreams and stuff like that. And some people have said, it's, loved ones are always with you after they're deceased. So, and the whole concept of living in dreams and controlling dreams has always been really creepy to me. So It's a little personal to me, so I think it's a little creepy, but a lot of people might not. So,
Yeah.
but no, I agree with everything you said. It's, a perfect example of a band in complete command of the craft of songwriting to me, because, in the hands of lesser musicians, something that is, honestly as stripped down as this really, is in a way, I think it would sound very simplistic and just another ballad. But the way that they layer the instruments, the like you said, like, all of the different layers to it and everything just makes it absolutely massive. I think that's a great word to use for this song.
Yeah.
It's just a
Yeah.
huge sounding song, and
Just some of the flourishes and the touches, ear candies I used to call them.
yeah,
And even as an artist, when you're writing, I'll give you a great example. When James and I were writing "Am I Right," you were taking a song which essentially could sound like a country song, and what I said to James was, look, we need to build this like, in my head, I was thinking of the way that Foreigner do "I Want to Know What Love Is," with the
yeah,
choirs singing in and orchestras, and I quoted this song as, it shouldn't just be an orchestra that follows what we are playing, or it just emulates what Christian's playing. Think of the way that they go, do 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 do, that beautiful counter melody that comes in from nowhere towards the end of the song. And that's where, as an artist, you can put those interesting pieces of ear candy for people just to hook on, and just to make each section a wee bit different as well. Love that. One thing that you and I haven't even touched on is how unique Jeff Tate is. That unbelievable powerhouse of a singer like Rob Halford, but this song shows that other side of his voice, that that low, I don't even know what kind of vocal style is that described as, but it's so low. Hush now, don't you cry. The only one I can think of an example would be that there was this girl who...
right, exactly.
But how unique is he as a singer? And imagine, John, you're a singer. Imagine walking into a rehearsal room with the band and saying, "This is how I'm going to sing the song." So fair play to him to really, because there aren't too many examples of that vocal style on Mindcrime that spring to mind for me.
Yeah.
There is low stuff, but that's super, super low. But you couldn't ever hear that song been sung any other way. And there's not another singer that I think has got that, just uniqueness to them, to go from that low register right up to the high, and know when to use it at the right time, and the effect that it brings to the song as well. And it's right through this album, which is why I'm saying that, you and I, probably should have mentioned it about 4 or 5 songs ago. But things like, Thin Line's got it as well. There's another one, Della Brown's got a little bit of it as well. So, yeah, very, very, very cool, and very effective, and very, very unique,
Yeah. No, totally agree. I think, he does it very well on this song in particular. It's almost like he's using his power voice, but you can tell he's holding it back. It's kind of like how Eddie Van Halen had a Variac on his amp, where he was running it at 10, but it was at it was like, it sounded like on 10, but if the volume was at 4. And I think that's a perfect analogy for what Jeff Tate does, especially on this one. Like, you can hear all of the strength and power and musculature, but it's so understated, and he's just holding it back. I mean, his vocal ability is just phenomenal. And I love that you brought that up, because he is just a kick-ass vocalist, and it is on display in so many places on this record. So awesome point.
Just flicking through this book, they looked great back then. Look how cool Michael looks. That they were just in that time period where they'd had success. I forgot. I haven't seen some of these pictures in years, but there's a really great one of the full band here. 1 second.
No problem.
It'll be quite an iconic. Yeah, that one there. That's a beauty.
Oh, man.
Yeah.
Back when they actually got along.
Yeah. I remember, if you've seen the bass that I played with Eden's Curse, I'm happy to go and get it if you want to see it. But I modelled my bass on, we've got a symbol through the middle of our kind of Eden's Curse logo that's not a million miles off this. It certainly wasn't planned, but it's a kind of double right. And I always loved Michael Wilton's guitar with the skulls on it. So when I was going to get a custom paint job, I was actually going to get that replicated. And I thought, nah, that's Michael's thing. But I love the simpleness of the black with the white on these lines. So what I did was take our Eden's curse symbol, and my bass has got that, and it always looked cool. So it's a huge Queensryche influence. Make sure you make me go and get it. It's only in the room next door. I'll go and grab it before the end of the show.
Yeah, for sure. Awesome. Okay, yeah, we'll do that before we sign off here, man. All right, so moving on, we have kind of yeah, and this is where the key change thing comes in that I was mentioning earlier. I got my lines crossed there, but yeah, I think this song and One and Only, I think, don't get talked about a lot either. You said because the first side of the record is so strong, but this one and One and Only, I think, to me, I was kind of like the quote unquote love songs of the album. This is like where you can really tell that the band is just in a great place. They're just happy and fulfilled, and it just comes pouring out in the writing. There's no minor key stuff on these two songs at all. And again, it's just another massive chorus, and again, I love the key changes in this one. It's very interesting to the ear. I think it takes kind of a like mood wise, it's a very kind of a light song, and it kind of sits I in a way, I think it could sit a little oddly against the rest of the record. But because of the key changes and stuff, there's so much here to listen to that I think it doesn't fall into that trap. So musically, this is one of my favorite songs for that reason. Another great guitar solo, I think. And just a really catchy song, and I like the breakdowns in the verses and stuff like that. Just a very, very well written song again, and melodically huge, and again, because see, this is what I was going to say when you mentioned the second side of the record. I think the songs on the second side of this album would be some of the most popular songs on any of the other records outside of Mindcrime. I think they're that good. I just, to your point again, the front is so strong that these kind of people are like, oh yeah, I don't know. So I think there's a little bit of a bias against these songs in a way because of how good the ones on the front side are. So I think this one suffers from that a little bit, but I love this song. So
no, I mean, I'm a huge fan of it. In fact, it's one of those songs that occasionally it will come on the i music shuffle in the car, and it just stands out as absolute quality from start to finish. It's the one that I would say for me, alongside of Another Rainy Night, is the most commercial there. That's the one I was alluding to earlier that could have been on a Tesla album or something. It's got that it's kind of got that late 90s, early 90s, late 80s vibe that whilst it's not like the Jet City Woman or not Mindcrime Empire that are synonymous with the band. It's a freaking phenomenal song, and it's one of the best songs on the record without doubt. But definitely, probably for me, the leanings to the most commercial, if not one of the most commercial songs they've ever done. So it's a slight departure. It's a bit more, shall we say, in a rock sense, a bit more poppy. You just don't know, what kind of influence they had, and maybe that's what we're hearing here. That Mindcrime, you've heard all of these stories that's gone through history of bands that have success, that the record label signs them on a bigger deal, they get more money, and you need another hit single, guys. And God, it happened to DT as well, where they're pushing them to get a hit single, and it's everything that they stood against. And that might be the likes of that, and the likes of One and Only, and the aforementioned Another Rainy Night might be those songs where they've had a stab at trying to be a bit more commercial to get a radio hit, because ultimately it probably put actual dollars in their pocket at the end of the day. And it would have been something like Eyes of a Stranger that did it for them, for example. And Jet City Woman would have maybe been, I mean, I think it did well, and I think Lucidity did very, very well. If I remember, I had the 12-inch picture disc of Lucidity. So I think that's probably what you're hearing, is a stab at commercialism there as well, but it works really, really well, and it still sounds like them. And to your point earlier on, it doesn't get the kudos it deserves because it is a phenomenal song.
I really wonder, to your point about the commercialism of it, that I wonder if that's one of those things where, I talked about how they jump around in the key, like to keep it interesting. I really wonder if they were in there and if this was just in the same key, straightforward. And they kind of went, yeah, this might be construed as a little cheesy. Let's what can we do to this? And they're like, oh, can we bump this up here? And kind of maybe those were songwriting choices specifically made to kind of not make it as poppy. I mean, I think that's a great word to describe this song. I think that's a very apt description of it. But yeah, I'm with you. I think it's a great song too. What I think is cool about this song and also the next one, which we'll get to in just a second. It's you don't have these songs on any other Queensryche record. This is if you want to hear a happy poppy upbeat, oh, I'm in love with you Queensryche song, if that's your jam, this is the only place you can go to get it. So I think this adds a really nice dynamic to the record. So I've always really enjoyed them for that reason. So that one, and again, moving on, talk about One and Only. I was I always think of my second girlfriend when I think of this song, because it was this was her favorite Queensryche song. She wasn't a big Queensryche fan, but she loved this song, and we were just like crazy about each other. So here I am, a lovesick puppy at like 21 years old or something, and she heard me listen to this. I love this song. I'm like, oh, you're my one and only. Total cheeseball. So I always think of that. But this is just to me, it's that this whole song is like peanut butter on the roof of your mouth type of a thing. It's just so upbeat, and it's just a very positive. Again, another one of those lyrics you can totally relate to. Back in 80s,
but
very
it actually
direct.
it's still got that kind of minor guitar chord behind it. It's almost, if you listen to it closely, it could be almost a little cousin of Empire, but a little bit. If I remember, slightly faster. Or is it still in the mid-tempo groove? If I remember right.
Yeah.
But it's married. It's married. I know what you mean with it being upbeat. The lyrical content's upbeat versus the darker, moodier, Empire. But it's still got those minor Queensryche signatures on the guitar work that make it work.
Yep. Yeah. No, this is just a standout song for me on the album, and especially coming as late in the record as it does, and having all the great material coming before it, to me, it's always been interesting that it stands out so much for me because it's not overshadowed. I think a lot of the stuff does get overshadowed, even though I don't think it should. This one, I think, really stands out, even more so than songs like we talked about, Resistance and Hand on Heart. There's just something about this song that always grabbed me, and I just I love the groove, like it's kind of got that little guitars, the Van Halen vibe, the beginning of little guitars, and that's one of my all-time favorite Van Halen songs. And so I love that rhythmic choice, and I just I like the closed hi-hat, and then when it gets into the the pre-chorus, the hi-hat opens up and then it kind of gets a little more smooth sounding. It's not as syncopated, and I just, again, it's a perfect example of taking a commercial, what could be construed as a commercial song, a straightforward song, and adding some really intelligently done musicianship to it to elevate it to another level, to where you're like, okay, this is still a Queensryche song, this is still a prog band. So I just think this is a great song, and for me, it's one of my favorites. So what are your thoughts on One and Only?
Yeah, I know, and I'm going to go back to my earlier comment about the second side being not strong. I mean, I think the songs on this would be some other band's best ever songs. That's the best compliment I can pay it. As you said earlier on, the first six are just absolute knockouts. The only other album I think that I can remember is similar. Apologies if you like them or not, but I think Hysteria by Def Leppard's got the same kind of criticism that the second side's not strong, but they're still awesome songs. they've got probably their best ballad on there, like Hysteria, the title track's there, whereas they've got Lucidity on the second side. They've got Run Riot, that's absolutely brilliant as well. So,
Dude,
you know,
Gods of War, my all-time favorite Def Leppard tune.
Oh, amazing! So they've got some unbelievable songs, but the first side of Hysteria is just out of this world, and I think that's where the latter ones maybe don't get as much kudos that they rightly deserve. But you know, that's why for me, even though I'm saying it's not as good as Empire, as Mindcrime, it's still an 8 or 9, because the quality of what some might consider filler, even myself, because I look at these and go, I can't remember that song, because I'm so used to hearing The Thin Line, I'm so used to hearing, you know, Empire, Jet City Woman, etc., that I forget the quality of these songs are actually. So One and Only, I totally agree with you. I think it's an incredible song. It's got everything. It's got all the hallmarks that you want from a Reich tune. It's got that commercialism that, as you rightly point out, John, and maybe your earlier comment to I can't remember who it was that asked about where to start. It's probably a great idea, because there is a commercialism to it, that it's maybe easily more accessible. But the first 6, if you get those, you'll get Mindcrime. If you get those, you'll get The Warning. You'll get some of the earlier stuff as well. Possibly it is a little bit different. It's maybe a bit more Iron Maiden and Halloween than it is the modern day Queensryche in the late 80s and 90s. But no, I mean, I love, again, another song that pops out on the shuffle and you think, oh, yeah, because I'm probably the same as you guys. You've got rock radio, you've got bars that you go to, and it's the staples that get played. You don't hear the resistances of the world coming out regularly, and yeah, it's a shame. Maybe it's up to us to change that.
Right? We need more One and Only, Hand on Heart. Let's go. We gotta start the movement. All right. So closing up the record, we have again what I think is a criminally underrated Queensryche song. But anybody listening, this is just an awesome, just an awesome song. It's, again, like I said earlier, I think this is one of the 2 songs that really stand out for me when I think of, atmosphere on the album. The chorus is just so cool. Is there anybody listening? Yeah. I just the way that they did that is just so cool. And this song has always felt to me kind of like how Learning to Live feels on Images and Words. Dream Theater has this knack of always, like, the closing song, it's the closing song, and you can't picture it anywhere else on the album. And I think this is a perfect example of that type of song. It's, again, the atmosphere is awesome. You were talking about Jeff Tate's voice, and this is, another one, like, you and I long to live. Like, that's just a beautiful vocal. And then it's got that bass part that comes in, do. And so there's just so much here. And I think it is an absolutely wonderful exclamation point or period, however you want to look at it, at the end of the sentence that is Empire. It's just, I think it's a perfect segue into what would come on Promised Land. But I just love that this is the closing track. I think it is just a beautiful song. Melodically, it's just perfect, at least to me. And I don't hear, again, I talk to my Queensryche buddies. This is one that they don't really talk about a lot. They talk about this record a bunch, and they've got their favorites, but this one doesn't get talked about, and I don't understand why. This is, especially for a band known to, a progressive metal band. This is a little bit more progressive, I think, especially for this record. And so I'm kind of surprised that it doesn't get more love. So what are your thoughts on this one?
Yeah, I mean, I think very similar as well. I think it is an incredible song. It's very haunting.
Yes, perfect word.
Imagine this being on Images and Words. Imagine James singing this.
Yeah.
Imagine DT slant on it. It's the closest, I think, to a song that you could lift off of, maybe the song off of this album that you could lift off and put on Images and Words in their style. So it's the biggest compliment I can give it. But it's, again, what you mentioned earlier on. It's got that atmosphere to it. It's got that cinematic quality. I hear many similarities almost as if it was in the same writing session, which I know sounds bloody obvious because it's the same album, but the same writing session as Lucidity. You know, they almost,
Sure.
you could all flow both of them into each other. But yeah, a great bookmark to the end of the song, and what an interesting title. And I wonder what they meant by that. Maybe it's, you know, being in a band as well, that sometimes, certainly for me, I was more in a band in the early days. We didn't tour until our second album, so we could have written, is there anybody listening? Well, literally, because you sold albums, but you never got to meet your audience. So I wonder where they were coming from when they write it. But I love the point you mentioned about the chorus. And as a musician, that must have been absolutely amazing to be in a room, because I would imagine these guys wrote this together in a room, to actually come up with something like that. Boom, 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 boom. And Jeff, you know, the way that I know James writes is he sits in the corner and he's humming these melodies into a phone, and he goes away into a separate room and records over. You know, that magic of being in a room and creating something like that must have just, I mean, it must have ran right through this whole session. It must have been breathtaking to be there. And again, what influence does Peter Collins bring, which I'd love to know. I'd love to be a fly in the wall. Maybe they'll mention that in Building Empires. It's been a long time since I watched it, but you could imagine things like the key changes in the earlier songs being something a top producer would say, guys, look, this is kind of playing out. Why don't we try a key change here? It's the kind of stuff that Desmond Child used to do back in the days with Bon Jovi, etc. So I'd love to know what his influence on in finding space and allowing these songs to be completely the band's own creation, but allow them to breathe and have dynamics into as well. But what strikes me about this one, JT, is that it's a prime example of how everybody in that group was absolutely at the top of their game on this album, and it's not even up for debate. It's not even up for debate. It's just a given, you know. And I loved, by the way, your earlier comment about little guitars. I totally got that as soon as you mentioned that. That's one of my top Van Halen songs of all time, also. So maybe that's maybe the next listening we need to do. But yeah, what a great end to just a phenomenal record as well.
That works. Hey, to your Van Halen comment, we could definitely do it. I know I've talked to Steve Rosen, who wrote, you know, Tone Chaser, and excellent Eddie Van Halen book. If you haven't heard of it or read it, you gotta check it out. It's unbelievable. But yeah, I told him, like, you gotta come out and do a deep dive, and he wanted to do Fair Warning. I was like, let's go. So maybe we'll get you guys both on and we'll talk a little Fair Warning there. So
Do that. Love to do that.
Well, all right. So I will do a quick sign off, but as I'm doing that, go grab that bass, man. Like, let's see that, and I'll talk about, you know, the show and where we're going next, and we'll do that, and then we'll get out of here. So well, guys, there we have it. A deep dive into Queensryche's Empire album with our very good friend Paul Logue. Again, unbelievable kick-ass record, and it was a blast, you know, having Paul on to help me out with that. Brian will be back on our next show, which is going to be on Thursday, October 3rd at 7:30 p.m. Eastern Standard Time at all of our usual locations. Again, if you guys are watching on YouTube, please click the like button, click the subscribe button, and hit that notification bell so that you're notified when we do shows at off times like this one. So make sure you do that. And again, we will be back live on Thursday, October 3rd at 7:30 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. Before we sign off here, let's bring Paul back here and check out his awesome Queensryche inspired bass. Here we go. That's badass, man.
Let's get a little work on it done. There's one of the tuning pegs is needing replaced, so it's just in maintenance mode. But you can see this was our Eden's Curse symbol, and I always loved the design that got done by this.
Oh, that's awesome, man. You got to get that thing fixed.
Yeah, I do need to get it fixed. Yeah, I'm waiting on the new tuning peg arriving, so it'll be fixed imminently.
Will we hear that on the new James Labrie solo record?
Yeah, well, I've got the one beside me that I played on the Beautiful Shade of Grey. So I actually played the Warwick acoustic bass on Beautiful Shade of Grey.
God, it's so beautiful. I've got to get my acoustic bass worked on, man.
Can you hear this? I don't know if it'll come through.
Oh yeah. There we go.
There we go.
It's so good. It's so good, man.
I'm a pick player, so I don't have my pick for doing it.
Yeah, I can't play with my fingers worth a damn, so I'm with you, man. So
Yeah.
real quick before we get out of here, I just found this last night, but it's impossible to find like audio or video of their Queensryche's unplugged concert, which is really weird to me because I would love to hear the full thing. But I actually just found last night somebody 3 weeks ago uploaded the rehearsal footage of it. So if you go on YouTube and look that up, it's like an hour and 45 minutes. I just saw that. So it's really interesting to see that if you haven't watched it.
I was thinking the exact same thing on the lead up to this show. I was obviously doing a bit of, refreshing my memory on the album, playing it around, and I was doing the same thing. And it dawned on me, because I mentioned Bon Jovi earlier on. I just watched that documentary that was out with John, and it made me actually dig out all my old Bon Jovi albums, and I actually went and bought a DVD of the kind of classic lineup. So I think it was a show at Wembley in '95. But I also then started thinking about, wonder if Queensryche ever released the MTV Unplugged, and lo and behold, I don't think they ever did an official.
Nope.
Are they saying they must obviously not have the rights to it, but I mean the fans would absolutely lap that up on a Blu-ray, wouldn't they?
Yeah, I mean I would pay an obscene amount of money to have that. I mean, it was, they were, like you said, there was like right at the peak of their career, before they started having fallen, the fallout with Jeff Tate and stuff like that. And I mean, I've seen some of the song selections on it, and it's awesome. I think, anybody listening is on there, which would be, awesome. And I know Della Brown, you can find Della Brown out there. So, I mean, those are just great selections. And, to hear them acoustically, it's just, man, oh man, just be awesome. The only thing is,
you've got me thinking. So is this coming through? Can you hear that?
Yeah. Nice. That's awesome.
Used to love little guitars. That was one of my favorite. Brilliant band.
So good. Yeah.
40, 44, 45 Van Halen songs.
I love it. My buddy I mentioned earlier that we're doing the show together next March. He and I are just enormous Van Halen fans, but he likes doing the Sammy stuff. I'm like, damn you, can't you do the Russo so I can actually sing it? Sammy is next to impossible. So like,
so we had a singer who was more in the Roth category, the Hager category. But so we did everything from the first album right up to, God, we even played the songs that were on the Twister soundtrack, like Humans Beings and stuff.
Yes, yep.
So it's really that. I mean, that's absolutely up in the gods. So that was good fun. But the Roth stuff definitely went down better across all of the audiences. But it was good fun. That was great for my bass playing, I can tell you that, and for the harmony vocals. But something I was going to tell you was, maybe, I know I've mentioned Winger twice, as it's been pointed out. Third mention I'll give you was at a show 2014, last song of the night. Kip Winger grabs the mic. Any musicians in the room? My buddy's standing behind me pointing, and Kip said, "Do you play bass?" I says, "I play bass." And he said, "Are you any good?" I said, "I'm okay." He said, "Right, get up here." So I get up on stage, and he literally just takes his Spectre off, hands it to me, and he says, "Do you know anything by Van Halen?" And I'm like, "Dude, name it."
Yeah, right.
So it was "It Ain't Talking About Love," and played the song, and all of my friends were like, "Well, you kept that quiet." I said, "Honestly, I knew nothing about it." And they said, "What, top 3 favorite band, and it was a Van Halen song?" Yeah, right. John, to this day, I knew nothing about it, and they still don't believe me. But what an incredible end to a night out.
That's
right
amazing.
Place, right time, and right band.
That's fantastic, man. I wish I had a cool story like that. Mine went the opposite way. I was out watching a friend's band out. The band I sing in is about 2 hours from home. and we were out that way. I didn't have a gig that night, but we were out staying at a cabin out by there. It's like kind of like a pool bar kind of camping place. And we found out there was live music, so we went over there, and come to find out it was a band that we're really good friends with. And since we do like 50, 60 songs a night, we 2.5 step down, just make it a little easier on us vocally. Well, this was a female fronted band, and they're like, oh, we got John Drake from Brother Believe Me here, like let's get him up here. And she's like, we're gonna do some Van Halen. I said, okay, what do you tune to? She goes, oh, standard. I was like, okay. And all of a sudden the piano player goes into Right Now. I was like, oh God, what are you doing? And I was abysmal. I was like, what? Why did you not ask me first? Holy shit, man. So it was the opposite. I was like so excited to sing Van Halen until he went into that. And I was like, oh no, this is going to be a train wreck. And it was. So, not my finest moment, but so, all right, man. Well, thank you very much for coming on. Like I said, we'll, hang out for a second after we go off air a bit. But, man, thank you so much for making time for us. This was a fucking blast. And thank you for all your amazing insights and making me look like I know halfway of what I'm talking about musically. And, really, really appreciate your time, man.
Always a pleasure, JT. Missed Brian, so pass my regards. And if he's watching this, Brian, we'll catch up soon. We'll catch up soon for sure. But yeah, anytime, man, if I'm back home and nothing on, I'll gladly come on and talk some music. It's one of my favorite subjects.
Sure. Yeah, man. And anytime if you want to jump on, talk anything, just hit me up, let me know, and we'll definitely get that Van Halen deep dive scheduled. So
yeah, let's do it. Let's do it.
Twist my arm, man. All right, guys, that's going to do it for another episode of Talking Into Infinity, a Dream Theater centric podcast. Once again, don't forget, we will be right back here at all these locations on Thursday, October 3rd at 7:30 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. So until then, guys, I am your host, John. He is Paul. And as always, Carpe Diem.
I'm going to play out.
Okay. Yes.